Go.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 305, and if you are watching and not just listening on the audio, we have a full table here. We got a full table. Got the wide angle going on here for the table here. We've got three guests tonight. Nate Hale, as always, on the other end of the table. Pretty far away there, bud. And we've got some very, very special news and some special bottles tonight. So before we jump into that, I do want to thank those that sponsor us here. If I can see these things to click here, my eyes are bad.
So far away.
I know, it's so far away. And I got the bigger laptop. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. You guys can go on there for the monthly contributions. We appreciate all that support. And also, if you want to do a one-time contribution, you can use Venmo at Bourbon and BS, and we appreciate that. If you ever want to buy a bottle, something like this BUA here, maybe, to drink along with us, and you want us to review it, you can go on there and kick us a contribution. We appreciate that very, very much. We also want to thank Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Big news coming up on that one. Talk about that. One of the reasons we're smoking this cigar here as a Smoking 10 event. The 11th annual Smoking 10 event is on March 16th. It's a Saturday. Tickets are on sale. About 70 tickets left of the 250 that were available. So good pace. Few weeks out here. So $200 plus tax gets you 14 plus cigars, brunch, lunch, gets you in front of all the reps from 13 different companies. And then you've got Eric Espinosa. You have Asylum 13. Tom Lazuka will be there.
Nice. That's a newest addition.
That is as of yesterday. Yeah. Rocky Patel will be there, as will Ricky Rodriguez with West Tampa Tobacco. So check that out. Tinderbox East in Columbus, Ohio. And then also Altus USA, some of the brands behind us there. You've got Monte Cristo, Romeo y Julieta, and you got H. Upman and Aging Room, among others. But we appreciate that continued support. And you guys have in front of you for the second part, then H. Upman Nicaragua, made by AJ Fernandez. So thank you, Altus USA. They will also be there with a big-time give-out cigar at their table at the Smoking 10 event. Can't give it away, but pretty good value there. And BS Cigar Company, thank you for the sponsorship there too. The gold and silver are available. You might have some BS cigars floating around that tent as well, but those are available. The gold is made by Plasencia and the silver is made by Espinosa. So appreciate BS Cigar Company. And I'm going to miss this one. Oh, there it is. Buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. Nate's got the white and blue BS hoodie on. I've got the, you can't really see it, sort of, the Barrelhead Bourbon and BS hoodie on. There's also some T-shirts, 3/4 sleeves, deep V's for the ladies. What else? Anything?
We got both podcast shirts and BS Cigar Company shirts on there.
So check it out, buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. That's enough of the business here. We've got some returning guests.
It's been a few years.
Yeah, not much has happened, I think, since the last time you were on in the world, let alone with BUA.
BUA came out in 2020. We brought a pandemic with
perfect timing. I mean,
we brought the pandemic.
I can't believe you guys forecasted that. It was pretty impressive.
Let's launch an Irish whiskey company. What could go wrong, we said.
And then you were in Ireland for a while. So we got Pat Byrne and we have Martin Kennedy with BUA Irish Whiskey. Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
And we have Anne Dimmick. Been a while since you've been on as well.
It's been
forever.
Years.
Again, nothing's changed with you either.
Nothing.
Everything's the same. Good catching up, guys.
All right.
Call it.
Yep.
And
great.
you are with OHLQ.
Yes.
And for those who don't know what that is,
Ohio liquor.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Ohio liquor. It's
We talk about it on the show a lot, that
Yeah.
Ohio is a state-controlled liquor agency. So OHLQ is that liquor agency. So we've got BUA, we've got OHLQ. Let's jump right into it. Why do we have you guys on this show, and what are these beautiful bottles in front of us? Martin, go ahead. I feel like you were going to say something. You like stopped. You're like, am I supposed to say something?
You gotta get back. I don't know who. You gotta get back into the mic. You gotta get back into the mic.
The answer in short is because we've been lucky enough to be able to deliver some super exclusive OHLQ barrel picks to Ohio this last couple of months, and we're super chuffed about it. We've just done an event in Cleveland, in Columbus, and Cincy, and cannot believe how well it's been received by, it's just super validating to like just see people receiving it so well. And yeah, we're super excited about just talking about them until all these are gone. So yeah, we got 4 of these in front of us that we've delivered. We're super excited about just delivering them out across the state, which is what we're going to be doing on Monday. No, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with retail events in
March 1, 2,
Cincy
and 3.
first,
Again, I've got them on there somewhere.
Cincy Friday.
No, that's part of it.
The world premiere
That's
release.
right. The inaugural events.
These
Yes.
events you guys did, first off, though, explain what those were, because not everyone was invited to those, right?
Mhm.
Where you're releasing these to who, first off?
Oh, I can give like a little
Yeah.
background on this
So
whole
it'll be
thing.
an class.
So these wonderful single barrels are part of what we are calling the OHLQ Irish Cask and Craft collection. So we are the number 4 largest domestic whiskey market in America, Ohio is, and that's behind California, Texas, and Florida. And then it goes Ohio. So if you think about that, 3 states that we have almost nothing in common with in terms of population and size and tourism and those things.
Mhm.
We're a great place to visit. So we've actually worked with more than 20 Irish distilleries, craft producers, and some large ones as well,
Mhm.
and put together a collection of new limited production, new to Ohio. Some are actually new to the United States. Collection of different Irish whiskey, Irish gin. The gin is
Irish
actually
gin.
pretty exciting.
Gin is really
Yes.
good too. Yeah.
And we're releasing it as part of the OHLQ Irish Cask and Craft collection the first weekend in March, where we will have 3 giant events. One Friday night in Cincinnati at Jungle Gyms at the Oscar Station. And then we will be at Giant Eagle Strongsville on Saturday from 12 to 2. And then we're back in Columbus because we really like I-71 and the drive.
Mhm.
On Sunday, we'll be at Chateau Wine and Spirits from 12 to 2. More than 20 distilleries. People will be able to meet with, we actually have quite a few founders, distillers that are
Mhm.
coming. Yes. Yeah. So it's pretty
Nice.
exciting. But there are, as the viewers of this show will be excited about, plenty of single cask, limited selections. We haven't really we do a lot of single barrels, our OHLQ exclusives. We just had our first one come out back in the beginning of the month. It was like a Whistler. Sorry, guys. Talking about another brand. It was great.
It's
The
okay.
PX I Love You single cask, which is done. It's good. It's
Oh, it's
flavor
delicious.
bomb. Yes, has done really well. And then ahead of the big public release, we actually, for the first time, did something pretty special where we had some tasting events for people that own or manage bars and restaurants in Ohio and gave them an opportunity to come through, meet the distillers, taste the products, and order them ahead of the retail release. So you're actually going to see some of these brands at some locations around Ohio
That's awesome.
for the event. So there is going to be some opportunity to try before you buy even.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And these events, you're going to be able to meet and buy these bottles, right? The 3
Yes.
coming up
Mhm.
for the
Mhm.
retail side of things. Okay. Very cool.
And
And
sample.
sample?
And sample.
And sample.
From us. We'll be there. So
Mhm.
You'll be there.
From us. Yep.
Sample before you buy.
Might-
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
might
like
see you there.
it's like a regular spirits tasting, and all the details are on ohlq.com. But like if you've ever gone
Going across the screen
into,
right there for those watching there.
oh yeah, ohlq.com. It's if you've ever gone into an OHLQ location and saw, somebody was doing a sampling and you could pay 50 cents and try it.
Mhm.
This is just a lot of different options all at one place.
So bring a lot of quarters like you're going to
Bring
the
your
arcade.
quarters, please.
Cool.
Come
Yeah.
drink with us. Yeah. We'll be drinking.
They're tasting samples, so it's small, but I think it's going to be really exciting because you'll get to meet people, take pictures. There's really a lot of the distilleries that we're working with are small businesses,
Yeah.
and so it's amazing how many have actually come over as part of this launch.
Wow.
It's been very cool.
It is cool. And I like the focus on, this is obviously the Bourbon and BS podcast, but bourbon is just the spotlight. so much so now, especially in the whiskey world, let alone the spirit world, in my opinion. And Irish whiskey, we talked about it last time you guys were on. I mean, it's like, I don't want to say it's like forgotten. It's just kind of it's there. You know, you go to a lot of bars and you have your staples. You know, you've got your Tully, you've got your Jameson, you've got what else? Redbreast.
Redbreast is one.
Which is
Green
still a part of
Spot,
that.
Yellow
Green
Spot.
Spot, yeah.
Powers,
Middleton's.
Middleton's Powers. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's cool to see some of the kind of resurgence of something else here. And I mean, it's really cool, especially you guys being local too.
Well, and Irish whiskey is really growing as a category enormously. I mean, the number of brands that are out there now, as opposed to 10 years ago, is just off the charts. So
That's awesome.
So it's a great growing brand, and the whole category of Irish whiskey is so wonderfully expansive, so that get a whole bunch of different flavors out there and different whiskeys.
Let's take it back here. It's been a few years now since we've had BUA on this show. We already have some people asking, like, what is BUA?
What the heck is BUA?
What does it stand for? We just had,
That's good. That's a
how
good
did
place to
BUA get
start.
its start?
Right.
We
That's a
had
good
Ray
place to
asking,
start.
what is BUA? What does it mean? Ryan is saying, how did BUA get its start? So kind of let's reintroduce ourselves here.
So yeah, well, BUA is the Irish word, the Gaelic Irish word for win or victory. And where we're going with that is, we are, like Anne said, we're one of the small guys. We're definitely not one of the big Jamesons or the big Tullys or the big, Bushmills. We're the small guys. We're the underdogs in a huge industry. So like when we were trying to put together this brand, we were trying to get something that was relatable to people, so rather than calling it, say, Kennedy's Irish Whiskey or Byrne's Irish Whiskey, really, unless you're a Byrne or a Kennedy, that's not really something that's relatable to anybody. Or you could have called it after, say, an old Irish place name, but again, it's not really something that's super relatable. But everybody can relate to that underdog sentiment. Everybody's working on something or fighting for something or trying to better themselves in some way. So that's what our brand does. Our brand tips the hat to that underdog sentiment that's in everybody. And that's, I suppose, where we're going with the hare and the tortoise on the front. Everybody knows that story.
Oh yeah.
The race between the hare and the tortoise. So yeah, cheers to the underdog. Cheers to the tortoise. That's what we're doing.
And years ago, I own a bar here in Columbus, and been there around for a long time. Byrne's Pub.
You want to say how long?
Yeah, well, we just started year 30. Jeez. So, when I first met Martin, he was repping for a different Irish whiskey, and we used to sit down and throw a few back every now and then.
Every now and
then.
Not every time.
No, not every
Certainly.
day. What is it?
It's every day.
But so we got together, and then the way it started was his tenure was up with that other brand, and
that will remain nameless.
right.
You don't say the name anymore.
I don't know.
It doesn't exist.
Put it on the list.
One drink.
So, but he was heading back to Ireland, and his contract was up with the other brand, and you can bring up the other brand if you want to.
Are they going
It's
to be
a-
at
it's a
this
very good
OHLQ thing?
They're
The other brand? Are they going to be at this?
They did not.
They're-
No, they,
Then just
didn't
forget
have
about
one.
it. Let's not talk about it.
but as we were walking out the door, it was, why can't we have our own? And Martin left for Ireland.
Was this after some of those that you kicked back? This idea?
Oh yes, this
After
was we
many
were well
reviews.
deep because
You were
because
inspired.
every idea that comes to you while drinking whiskey with your friends always comes to fruition.
Like a podcast.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Just
Yeah. Or
like-
t-shirts.
Yeah, and you seem to remember 10 minutes of the good part of the conversation of the night prior. So there was a lot of 10 minutes that were put together.
Built
that-
up.
Yeah,
Good,
over a
good.
period of time.
Sure.
So essentially, it walked out the door as, why can't we have our own brand? And a few months later, Martin called me and said, found a source, we can start our own brand.
Love it.
And so here we are now.
And the original one, I'm trying to remember. There's 5 different, correct?
That's right. The original is one here in the middle.
The blue label
Yeah,
there.
so the blue label, it's I still love the color because it stands out
Blue
on the
blue.
shelf.
It does.
Whether it's in a retail like a liquor store or on a bar shelf, it definitely stands out.
Yeah.
I bet you.
And that's what we were going for. We
Yeah.
we wanted something that stood out on the shelf. We wanted something that we didn't want something that was the traditional looking. Say you're looking at a lot of Irish whiskeys, you're looking at the same font, the same lettering, same colors, green, beige, brown. You know, that we wanted something that was clear, clean, crisp, and the opposite of what all of that is. We also wanted BUA is like, for a word, like most people on the planet have never spoken a word of Irish in their life, but those 3 letters are pretty hard to mispronounce. You know,
Yeah.
BUA, everybody can pronounce that, whether you've spoken a word of Irish in your life. So that's also something that we were kind of bearing in mind.
I would imagine you get a lot of that. Like what's that blue one? What's the BUA?
Yeah.
What's that?
And that was the other thing, is that, you know, the letters are big. You can read it from,
Yeah.
you can read it from 15, 20 feet away.
Dimly lit bars, maybe.
Right.
You know,
Just
stands out. For those that haven't had, go ahead, Nate.
Well, I remember shortly after it launched 4 years ago, I was in a liquor store and I was looking for it. And because it was a new brand, most of the time when I did see it, it was like somewhere on the bottom shelf in the Irish whiskey section. So that's where I kept looking.
Yeah.
I was going around this whole liquor department trying to find it. And then finally it was second shelf from the top right next to Jameson. And I was like, oh, there it is. I grab it and I go up to the register, and the manager was working and she's ringing me out. She goes, I was going to ask you if you needed help finding anything, but anyone who's looking for BUA knows what the hell they're doing. So
Yeah.
you're good.
Nice. I always go in, Anne mightn't like this, but I go into liquor stores and I always, as well, when I see it as like a single facing, I always like turn it into a 2 facing.
Don't mess
Sorry,
with
Anne.
Side jacket. Yeah.
I
Shouldn't have
totally,
said that in front of this
I
lady.
totally did that in my sales rep days.
I'm sure.
Right.
Now Martin comes into.
That's not an endorsement.
Yes. Changing the
Yeah, I got-
Jameson
I
8
got my eye on
facing to
you.
maybe just take one of those.
Let's get an end cap. What the hell?
Oh, my boss would kick it off the floor.
All right. So what are we drinking? This is the original BUA. This is the light blue. Was it sky blue? What do you guys call that blue?
Yeah,
BUA
blue.
blue.
We're
Should have
drinking.
known. Should have known. All
Yeah.
right.
We're drinking
BUA
the
blue.
original triple distilled, non-chill filtered, no added coloring. So you might notice that it's a little bit lighter than what, like say a Jameson or a Tullamore Dew or a Bushmills is.
Or half the other bottles.
Most of the other, yes, the other bottles that we have here in front of us. Well, that's because all of our BUA, all our whiskey will always be no added coloring. It'll always be all natural coloring, but a lot of Irish whiskeys will actually add coloring to
Really?
make it consistent coloring from batch to batch, which we just didn't really want to do. We wanted to, present it exactly as the barrels intended it. So that's
Actually,
where
it happens frequently throughout the brown liquor category. Is that, and the reason being is that when you have bottles on the shelf, each batch can be a different color.
Hmm.
So they color it up so that everything's the same. So you can't see different colors in different bottles.
But you know what? That's
Same
the way it's
whiskey.
supposed to be. So
Yeah.
we just kind of
Like in the cigar
Small
world,
batch
they
whiskeys.
actually, so cigar world, like we've got a unique one, but it's similar. I don't know if we talked about it last time, but you have color sorters.
Hmm.
And it's on the wrapper leaf, and it's usually women actually in these countries because they have a different way of seeing the colors than males do typically. But they're going to be, so if you have like the same, I think Padron, everyone knows Padron, like Asylum, obviously let's focus on that. Asylum 13, some of their blends, they will try to match up the 20 or 25 cigars that are in the box to be more uniform. So when you open a box, you'll see that it's all the same.
Okay.
But if you open up like 2 boxes, there might be some slight color differential there.
Yep,
So
that's
it's very similar.
So that at least it's a lot that are different.
You have
together.
that sense of uniform, but
Yeah.
it's a natural product.
It's
you
going
know
to be
what I mean?
different.
You
Put all
know-
the different ones together.
Exactly. All right, so you got the 5 different barrels, correct?
Mm-hmm. So we have this. So here, well, we have 4 official exclusive releases. So we have our original here. So this is our original, distilled across or matured across 5 different barrel types. But our OHLQ exclusives, apart from this one, which is out in the wild, we have a single grain, and we also have, so all of them are cask strength. So again, all of them are no added coloring, but we have our single grain. We have a single malt, which is 7 years matured, and it's finished in white muscatel casks. And we have 2 different batches of another Tawny Port single malts, which are they're the same Tawny Port cask, same 7 years matured, triple distilled single malt, same mash bill, same everything, but just a snapshot of what each cask did to that single malt, which is kind of interesting. So it'll be interesting to taste those side by side with each other.
Mhm.
For those that have not had the original, we do have some questions here I do want to kind of bring up here. One, where is this available? Because we do have listeners. We have someone asking, what was it, Nate? You saw it. Florida, Total Wine, and or ABC. Are you guys?
We are.
How far is the reach here at this point?
We are in the state of Ohio.
State of Ohio. Okay.
And really, we're exclusive to the state of Ohio because primarily, simply, we don't have the money to reach out, and so we're going to come out here. And our goal is to make some money in Ohio so that we can reach out and start opening up other markets.
Naturally.
So, or we could just go in every state and just lose money everywhere. And then
Let's not do that. No. First way is a better plan, I think. And what's the price point of the original BUA here?
33 and change.
$33.39.
$33.39. Very specific.
It's yes.
Very.
OHLQ get that too.
Okay.
Wait, no.
How much the bottles cost them? And they told us how much they sold them for.
You pick your case price, and
we
there's
pick the-
one calculation. And so, if you want a certain shelf price, you
I guess we weren't paying attention to the end. We were just paying attention to what mattered to us.
here's what we want to pay.
Very good.
But it all indexes off the case price that the vendor quotes when they
Yeah.
submit the item for listing.
Okay.
Same calculation.
No, it's true.
You can twiddle with it too, like
Yeah,
like
it's kind of
add a
funny
couple
because-
cents to get it to 99 versus
Yeah. But
33,
even
39.
our case price is another like odd number like that too. So it's
It's good.
it was just
memorable.
all
It's
working.
memorable.
We were doing this. I was doing this off my phone one time. So
There's
I would-
another question. Someone asked, how many liters are you guys producing each year?
So we're putting about a container. That's a difficult question to answer.
Or how many
But we're putting about a
cases?
container of. So that's a container is about 20 pallets with 50 cases on a pallet. So yeah, about that much. We're putting another container on the water later this year.
Nice. What are we tasting here? Let's not just jump ahead. I mean, this is something that people can get obviously now,
Yeah.
especially in Ohio.
So this is, like I said, it's our triple distilled, non-chill filtered, no added coloring, original release. It's matured across 5 different barrel types. So it's matured across, it's a blend of single grain and single malt, I should say. And it's matured across 5 different barrel types. So an ex-bourbon, an ex-sherry cask, ex-white muscatel, and ex-tawny port, but also a freshly charred cask, which that natural charcoal in the barrel will help smoothen it out for us, and that adds a little bit of the coloring there too, a little bit of the natural coloring that you see in there. So really, when you're thinking a single grain and single malt blend, what you're getting is sort of a light vanilla undertone from that single grain, and the single malt brings you fruity notes essentially. So we have a lot of lighter fruity notes there coming from the white muscatel cask, and we have a lot of darker sugar fruity notes, so raisins and plums and these. Yeah, I think that's on your list there as well of things not to mention
strange.
weird
Weird
fruit
fruit.
references.
I mean, you have to drink, everyone.
But that's what we're getting. That's what we were going for with this. Yeah, a light sweet vanilla undertone with sort of lighter fruity notes there on the back end. Yeah, perfectly
Yeah, it's,
drinkable.
to me,
perfectly
it
accessible.
is light, and
Mhm.
but the flavor, like, it has a nice long finish to it.
Yeah.
In my opinion. What do you guys think, Nate? Anne? You guys drink this stuff all the time.
I do.
Well, I remember
I do.
Do you?
I do. I ordered this when I'm out.
You do?
I do.
Love it.
Shannon, I hope my mic comes out better. No, I remember 4 years ago when we had you guys on, we had asked you guys about the flavor that the flavor notes that you guys pick up, and Martin, you had started to go through like each one of those barrels. You're like, okay, this barrel we use that because it imparts this flavor. This barrel imparts it, and you went down the list, and every single one of those, I'm sitting there going, yep,
Mhm.
yep, just.
Yeah.
And so what I was saying to one of the listeners is when like this one thing I love about this is it's so smooth, even though some people consider 40% light. I'm like, so what? It's so smooth. I can drink this outside on a 90-degree day with no ice. Like it just goes down that smooth. But because of those 5 different barrels that you're maturing it in, the complexity is so amazing. For something that looks as light as it is and 80 proof, the amount of flavor notes and complexity on this whiskey is unlike any other Irish whiskey I've had.
That's what we get a bit as well. Like people, they often look at the color of the color of the liquid in the bottle on a shelf, and they'll think, well, there's not going to be much to something that's lighter in color than there is, say, a whiskey that's very, very dark, super dark in color. There's going to be much more to that, but really, it surprises people. It's like, oh Jesus, I didn't expect all that. So yeah, it's good to hear that you're.
We also had the thing where 4 years ago we had batch 1 out. Batch 1 was even lighter in color in bottle, but batch 2 we finished it, and batch 1 was finished in the winter months, and batch 2 was finished in summer month. Got a lot more action out of barrels, and it really came out a little bolder and they're distinctly different from batch 1.
Much more of an interaction with the barrels, in the summer months.
And so, I would say to anybody who, and I come across lots of people that were not big fans of batch 1, and I taste them on batch 2, and it's like, okay, this is, now you have everything that batch 1 had, but it's bolder and a little more whiskey forward on the flavor. So again, it just changes, how you're finishing it, when you're finishing it. And Martin can speak to. Martin's a whiskey artist, and so he creates whiskeys that are just really unique and high quality and very flavorful.
Is this batch 1 or batch 2?
This is batch 2.
Okay,
and that's the current batch that's available. Correct.
Batch 1 is hard to find.
It's gone.
Martin,
Burns Pub.
You had mentioned that the other finishing ones that are OHLQ exclusives, those were all 7-year.
So the malts, the single malts, they're all 7 years.
Okay.
And the single grain is a non-age statement, but I don't mind saying that it's a marriage of single grains that are 4 years old, 4 to 5 years old, like 4.5 to 5 years old.
Okay. What's the regular everyday BUA?
Got it again before 4 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a non-age statement, but yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
So there you go, Jason. There's your answer.
And
Sorry,
if you're
I'm
looking
responding.
for it, we put the link in the chat.
Yes.
Yes, you
If
did.
only there was a website
Which told you exactly where every bottle in the state is.
and updated
Super
every so
accurate.
many minutes.
It's amazing to talk to, like when at the shop, the tinderbox, where people are asking. We do get that question a lot. You're like, hey, is there like a liquor store around here?
Yeah.
And or they're looking for something in particular. A lot of times around like the holidays, also like looking for certain bottles for gifts. And the fact that there is an OHLQ.com, the website itself. I don't know how common that is of all the state-run agencies, but I know that people are typically blown away the fact that they can punch in BUA.
Yeah.
And then I'll just bring it all up, and it's pretty fun.
It's crazy how accurate it is.
I get people coming into my store looking for certain products, and we have 2 other agencies that are within a mile of us. So we don't always carry the same things as everyone else does. And so they'll come in looking for something. I'm like, no, we don't have it. Let me see if either 1, see if it's even available in the state of Ohio. And 2, if it is, then okay, let me pull up where is it available. Sometimes it might be sold out, or sometimes it might be literally down the road or on the other side of town. But it's like this: if you really want it, here you go.
It's such a good facility. Like I've heard stories of customers walking into liquor stores where they can I get something or another, and the liquor store, whoever's working behind the counter, is like, no, I don't think we have that. And is it on the shelf? I'm like, no, it's not on the shelf. I don't think we have it. And then the customer is like, well, it says here you do. And then they go out the back and then oh, we actually got it. Yeah. It's like, it's crazy how accurate it is. But yeah.
So many items.
All this information, that's
a lot.
Yeah.
Every 72 minutes, is it? What is this?
15 to 30.
Every 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Jeez.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Near real time.
That's amazing.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So are you guys, anyone else? Nate, you're ready.
Yes.
You guys
Well,
don't have to chug it.
I think most of us had. I think most of us had.
Martin's like,
I'm ready.
Oh, let's go.
Always.
I think most of us had smaller pours than Mark.
It's true. Yeah. He's fine with it. So
Yeah.
let's move on to the next one you think we should go to
Take a
here.
look. Let's go to single grain.
Single grain. All right. White label.
Yeah, let's do this one.
Put the banner up
Oh.
here again.
There we go. You tell me when to
There you
stop.
go. Perfect.
This is a single grain.
Bigger one from Nate.
Thank you.
We got to
Appreciate that.
keep it in check.
And
You
we're
have
finishing.
driver.
We're finishing
do.
these bottles.
Boy.
I would still want to feel good, like
Oh,
tomorrow. And we got miles to go this week.
Oh yeah.
I'll
Tomorrow.
look forward
Yeah,
here.
tomorrow we got something else going.
So we had a question here from Ray. What is the Ohio connection? And we kind of went over that at the beginning here because you guys met at Byrne's Pub,
Right.
right?
I'm born and raised here in Ohio, in Columbus, and I opened up. My brothers and I opened up a bar in 1995, Byrne's Pub, and so that is where Martin and I met, and we started talking whiskey and came up with this idea to start a brand. So that is the Ohio connection, and it was conceived. The whole brand was conceived right here in Ohio. Idea went back to Ireland with Martin, and Martin got to work on it there. And like all Irish whiskeys, to be called an Irish whiskey, it has to spend every minute on the island of Ireland until it's finished. If it spends 1 minute off the island, you cannot call it an Irish whiskey.
Yeah,
Really?
if it matures 1 minute off the island of Ireland, they can't yet.
And they're very thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are very thorough about that. We
So,
have
yeah.
lots of paperwork coming out that we have to.
Wow.
You have to verify and prove.
In order to be Irish whiskey, basically the rules are, in short, but they are, has to be, there's all sorts of myths that it must be triple distilled, for example, but that's not the case. It can be double distilled, for example, but it has to be made from a mash of grains. Doesn't have to be corn, say, for example. It can be barley, it can be rye, it can be oats in the mash. There can be all sorts of grains, but it has to be made from a mash of grains and distilled and matured on the island of Ireland for no less than 3 years. And that and matured in wood, by the way. It doesn't say what type of wood, doesn't say if the wood
Is
has
new
to
or
be
used.
fresh
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
it can have whatever else in the wood before the fresh new make got into the wood. But so that gives us a lot of leeway, or not leeway, but a lot of opportunity really to mix up what we want to do.
So we did have a question about Jason Williams is out there asking a lot of questions.
Keep it coming, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for tuning in. He's definitely into this and wanting it to expand. He said, "Good luck
Okay.
to you." 'Cause apparently, he's not in Ohio, right? He's in Florida.
and his
Jason,
his-
I don't know where you are in Florida, but I have kids in Tampa, and we make whiskey mule runs down to Tampa all the
Oh
time.
boy, here we go.
well, his
We want to set something up. But
the reason he's asking about 12 years, his favorite is Redbreast 12 cask strength.
Oh yeah,
nice. That's a good choice.
yeah. Which
And he's-
is at the is that part of the event? Redbreast
it is.
12.
We have
Yeah,
Redbreast
cask strength.
12.
Quite a
was
bit of
out.
Redbreast.
Was it?
And we actually have their head distiller coming to
Oh, yeah.
town for
Mhm.
2 of the events,
Wow.
which he almost
he's a rock
never
star.
comes to the United
Yeah.
States.
Columbus,
so-
one of those two.
Yes.
Nice.
Yep.
There is a rock
Me,
star of the
Cleveland, and
industry right
Columbus.
there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So just jumping into this one. So he says, any plans for a 12-year, or would that break y'all? Probably at this point. That's
5 years from now.
okay. It's in the works. It's in the works, along with the expansion to other states. This one here, the single grain. So what is said single grain?
So single grain whiskey. Basically, the single means it's come from a single distillery. That's not
Okay.
the important word there really. But grain whiskey is whiskey. Basically, there's a lot of leeway there in that mash bill. It just is Irish whiskey that has been matured, distilled, and matured from a mash of grain. So mostly that will be corn for efficiency's sake, but it could be from rye. It could be from a little bit of malted barley in there, a little bit of unmalted barley even there, oats, etc. But yeah, this one is the majority of this mash bill is corn. So bourbon drinkers will like this. They'll like two things about this. So it's the mash is mostly corn, but also we've used two different barrels in this one. We've used freshly charred casks, which gives a lot of what you're going to expect from a freshly charred cask. A lot of toffee caramel notes, but also we've used ex-imperial Irish stout casks, and there's a rock star cask in itself. It's a huge imperial stout was in those casks for 2 years. Big 14-15% imperial stout there, and so I took some grain whiskey and put it in those barrels, and that added lots of dark chocolate, creamy sort of dark chocolate roasty character to this whiskey. And it should say as well before we shoot it, it's 61% alcohol. So
I see you stepped it up here a little bit here.
Yeah.
And I noticed that when I was reading the bottle, I was like, "Is this? Nope, this is not.
It's in no 80 proof.
No."
Yeah. So
So
cheers.
let's take a sip. Yeah, cheers, guys.
122
Mhm.
122.
22 proof.
doesn't drink like
No.
the 122s that Steve and I are used to.
Aside from Ohio, do you also sell in Ireland?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's not like a totally Ohio exclusive
Just-
Irish
yeah.
whiskey,
Exclusively Ireland and Ohio.
except for
Yeah.
I
Ireland.
like it.
Well, and Ray had also asked, whereabouts in Ireland is this being produced?
It's about an hour north of Dublin,
Okay.
in a town called Dundalk, is where all the distillation and the maturation takes place.
Okay.
Before, actually, recently moved our bottling to there as well. So yeah, before bottling and shipping right off the port in Dublin. Yeah.
So what are you guys getting from this one? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was
Sorry.
going to add something on
Go
that
ahead.
about where it's produced. So part of the Irish Cask and Craft event, we actually have these full color, I'm like letting it all out, booklets that everybody who attends can get. And it is a profile of all of the different distilleries, and there's maps, and you can actually see where they're all located
Interesting.
in Ireland, because it's pretty small.
Yeah.
You can do the whole thing in a week. It's
You can
very,
drive from the East Coast to the West Coast in an hour and a half.
yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Ireland is pretty much the square mileage of Ohio. It's very, very close.
Mhm.
Really?
In size.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Definitely on the bucket list there. I have not been.
Let's go.
It's not too far away.
Tonight.
There are
Tonight?
direct flights from Cleveland.
You're not
Oh,
doing
yeah.
the pick tomorrow, Steve?
No.
There are direct flights from Cleveland, Aer Lingus. So like
Mhm. Yeah.
the Irish airline.
Good to know.
It's right in and out.
No. Good enough. All right. So what are we getting from this the single grain here?
Getting magic.
Magic. And let's hear some of your famous tasting notes here.
And by the way, I think this goes really well with a cigar. This one in particular will go really well. Is going really well. I could have liked this cigar.
I like that you kind of said that the bourbon drinkers would like this one.
For sure.
So what do we got? Five people here.
All right. Well, one, it's it's a primarily a corn mash. So you're getting a lot of that just single grain, but through the nose, I think that the pick up a lot of that imperial stout comes through there on the nose, and the chocolatey
Mhm.
at the end of
Creaminess.
it. Yeah.
Creaminess.
Yeah.
So that imperial stout was amazing, and Declan is a great brewer in Donegal County. So he produces a whole lot of very eclectic beers, just snifter beers, and just very, very, very small production there. But he's like a chef of beers.
Wow.
He just makes some really, really wild stuff. And so we sent him a couple barrels, and he made this imperial stout in those barrels, and he gave the barrels back, and we put whiskey in.
Nice. I'm getting like some of the bourbon flavors, honestly, on
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah.
So like a little bit
That's
like
that freshly
the
charred cask with
vanilla.
Yeah.
There's that creaminess. You mentioned like get like the kind of like hints of like the chocolatey like stuff
lots of
behind
toffee
it.
caramel notes.
Yeah,
and then the chocolate notes coming much more so from that imperial stout cask, in my opinion. But yeah, and then like a little bit of roasty character there too.
I was gonna say roasted coffee.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, roasty
really
coffee
strong.
character from the
With
again,
like
from the imperial stout.
the really good cream that makes it not a diet drink.
Not those cream
No,
packets.
no.
The high
really
calorie
good cream.
coffees.
Well, before Pat said the corn, like I was definitely picking up the corn and vanilla to the point where it's almost like a vanilla cream soda.
Mm.
almost.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That kind of creamy thickness to it.
Yeah.
But really big, deep, bold flavors on the back.
Oh yeah, like the finish is super bright, but in a nice way. Like there's a lot of flavor just kind of highlighting on the back of that as it sits there.
It's been going down really well at these last 3 shows.
Yeah.
It's been a
What's the production like volume of these?
so these are exclusives. There is only
Right.
2 barrels.
2 barrels.
2 barrels of this has come over.
So like 200 and
200 liter barrels. Yeah. So that's
How many
calculate-
How many
bottles do we
bottles?
let
have?
me calculate the bottles that you
How
got.
many
Well, you
bottles are
got
available? Because this is interesting for those that are getting into like different whiskeys, but especially with like Irish stuff. I feel as though you've seen or I've seen
bottles.
from some of like the big
no, it's
the
this
big
many.
producers, big names, your staple Irish whiskeys. They've started expanding what's available. You know, like
Mhm.
bring up like a Jameson. Like you had like they did the stout one, the IPA. They did the black barrels, a staple for them now. But
Mhm.
people that are so used to Jameson or like a Powers or something like that. I mean, we had Barry Chandler on at one point, and it was something.
Barry's gonna be
Barry
there.
will be there.
I'll be there.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So all the names are going to be there.
All the names.
But it's interesting because as someone in America, the Irish whiskeys, it was like, let's take a shot of Jameson.
Yeah.
Let's take a shot of something else. And like with this, you see the expansion. Like this does not taste like the BUA Blue bottle.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, this is a completely different
Oh, yeah.
product. And I think that, with the expansion, like we were talking about earlier, as far as what Irish whiskey is starting to hit in Ohio, doing their part, I think it's very interesting just to see the different expressions. This is just number 2 of the
Yeah.
tasting here. And it's very, very different. It's very unique.
Yeah.
and
Well, just
very
to answer your
pleasant.
question, a little bit more than just a little over 500 bottles
Okay.
for a huge market. So this will go fast, and when it
Absolutely.
goes, it is gone.
So sad.
Yeah.
We're gonna need
Let's
more.
do it again.
Yeah.
one
I'll
of
do it
the
in a few
great
weeks.
one of the great stories when especially when BUA first came out, and I was tasting somebody at the bar, which I do all the time. But somebody comes up and orders Jameson, and I'll pull out and slip a little BUA in a glass next to him, say, okay, let's go ahead and taste these against each other. And I remember one guy going, man, that's really smooth. So that's really good. That's really easy to drink. That's really good whiskey. But when I'm drinking whiskey, I feel like I should be punished. So I'm probably going to drink Jameson.
Oh, wow.
Well, I can't argue with that part.
I don't think you want to argue.
Say that with the master
story.
distiller of Jameson coming into town.
Yeah, my gosh. Some other
We
issues I
didn't
think
say
are
that.
behind that guy.
Somebody else said it.
I didn't say it.
So with this though, with part of this for you guys as the company, are we looking for feedback from people? I mean, is there a way that if this is a huge hit, like whatever this is, I mean, are you looking at can we produce something like say the one we're sipping on in bigger numbers going forward? Is this like kind of a focus
bit.
group? I mean, are you looking for feedback somehow? I don't know if it's on the website or through like social media, but I mean, just like, hey, what was your favorite? Anyone got the hands on it? Or is this like it's very difficult to produce certain ones of these, like because you have the brewer that's involved in this one? I mean, is it something where you're like, all right, so this was the hit or whatever it is, this is the hit. Do we invest some more time, money into this being a somewhat maybe not regular release, but like kind of a limited production, but on a regular basis?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit of all of what you said there. The last these last 3 events have been some super validation for us. Really, honestly, we couldn't believe how well they were being received by people just coming to us interested in it. Like we weren't, usually it's, being out in the beat, and Anne knows this, is like you're going to people trying to get their time, trying to convince them to come on board with you. But really, this was like really just myself and Pat, and just standing behind a desk and people interested, but not overly interested, and then walking away and thinking, hell yeah, I'm going to buy, cases of this. It's been super validating, but how well these have been received. And there will definitely, as a result of these last 3 events alone in Cleveland, Cincy, and Columbus, there will be more of these to come. And
Nice.
It'll be silly not to, really, but that's another job for tomorrow. There's plenty more to do.
Got BUA on the map. I think the challenge that we have is that, we have different, Irish whiskey offerings, but they tend to be lower proof. And our bourbon market, rye, American whiskey market here, the consumers are so knowledgeable. Yeah. And I hear that all the time when different distillers come in and they're talking to people and they're like, these people know their stuff. I'm getting asked like really deep technical questions. Mm-hmm. We don't have that same knowledge base among the consumers about Irish whiskey. And so showing them, first of all, what it is, I put a link to an article in the chat. And we actually fact check with our local resident expert. But we have a challenge in terms of educating them, making it accessible, but also there are some things that are lower proof and lighter, but we're a very high proof whiskey market, bourbon. I mean, that's what everybody's going for, the hazmat barrels and all of this. And so we're bringing some options that are sort of in that range as well. Like this is, the Irish whiskey version of the things that you already love.
Well, sometimes you just want something that is just a smooth, everyday kind of sipper. You don't necessarily always want to go for the things that are going to just burn your mouth.
Right.
And, I mean, sometimes you just, on a 90-degree summer day, you don't necessarily want to be sitting outside drinking something that's 135.
Right.
Or like the bottle we had recently, 145.4. Like
it's light.
Yeah.
It's light.
Yeah. You'll be sweating in the summertime. But it's like, these are products that are just, they go down smooth. They're easy to drink, and you can enjoy them anytime.
Yeah.
Are we gonna?
Let's move on. Yeah.
Well, you top these off, so we can kind of talk about some of the other ones too as we're going through this. But it's interesting because you're over 120 proof on this one, right? And we've talked about this before on the show, where it's you can see whether it's say 80 proof or 120. It doesn't always. I think as people are getting into it, you're looking at the higher proof numbers, expecting heat, expecting burn. I would say going from the original BUA to this one, that's quite a jump.
Yeah.
I mean, 20+%. And I wouldn't say this drinks hot. I don't know about what you guys think. I mean, you guys are obviously, your stuff, what you're putting out there, but Nate, Ann, I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I said it earlier. I think this one, kind of punches below its proof.
Right.
It doesn't drink like a 122. Because I love playing that game where I take a bottle in a tinderbox and pour it for guys like Steve and Brian and be like, hey, what do you think this one is? And see where it comes out. And this is one of those that I think you'd have people pushing that 100 proof point.
I was going to say the exact same.
Yeah.
People are expecting it to be spicy. When you tell them what the percent and tell them don't go shooting it, they're expecting it to be spicy, and then they're surprised. It's more actually leaning towards like creamy chocolatey notes rather than.
You don't get that burn in the check. You don't get the the Ohio embrace as we call it. You don't get any of that.
Ohio embrace.
Yeah.
but even the original BUA doesn't even drink like an 80 proof. It's there's a lot of people very surprised that BUA is 80 proof. It's just so
complex,
right? It's got so much going on with it, but a deep whiskey burn is not one of them. And so a lot of people do like that, and we're enjoying it right here with the higher proof ones, but a lot of what, and again, I refer back to Martin. I think Martin's put together some really, really good whiskeys and some great recipes here. It's just we're putting out a whiskey that's so incredibly drinkable for its proof point.
Got a question I'm going to put up here, and it's from Ray Cheshire. The original being the 33, 39,
80 proof.
80 proof. He puts up on there. It sounds to me as if the BUA is significantly underpriced, which you don't hear very often, by the way, about anything anymore.
Raise your price.
Even more.
Is that purposely done at this price, like this point, in order to get it out there, or is this you guys are just trying to put a fair market value on this?
It's really, I mean, we came out to, we want to compete with your everyday Irish whiskeys. We want to come out there and give you a reason. We didn't want to price it out to where, you know, you might be afraid to try it or think that it's just too expensive.
Yeah.
So
I get that from the retail side of things,
Uh-huh.
because you know, when people come in and they're looking for recommendations for Irish whiskey, this is something that I recommend to them, because if I recommend something like Redbreast or Green Spot, Yellow Spot, some of those that are in that $60, $70, $80 range and up, they're much more hesitant to pull the trigger on that price point of a bottle that they haven't tried. Bourbon drinkers will go for it all day long. Irish whiskey drinkers, not so much. But you sit there and go, yeah, this is $33. It's, you know, what, $5, $6 more than Jameson. Like,
Exactly.
oh, okay, that seems reasonable. And
That's who you're shooting for, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you're
When
not
we were
shooting
putting that
for the-
together.
Yeah.
When we were putting that together, that basically that 33 and change price is as low as we can go, really, being a small producer, like a small company that isn't, you know, sending container loads at a time to the state. That's as low as we can go. But this was always only ever really intended to be, you know, the first in a line and the intro to BUA. But yeah, all the other releases, they are a little bit more of a jump in price. But like, for example,
I was
this
gonna
one,
say, let's talk about that.
this is $54.99.
Wow.
Much
One of the
more like specific prices.
Yeah.
So think about single barrels. That's a pretty accessible single
It's
barrel.
aggressive.
I
It's
mean,
aggressive in a good
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
what's
And
the-
then the others are $79.99. The malts,
much?
all the malts,
$79.99.
$79.99.
So it jumps up a little bit more.
for the malts. That's
moving on to
it's
those
a much
here.
more expensive.
I do
Would
like
you-
this other question before we get to it. And yeah, we have another spammer on this. This is awesome. That's how you know you're making it, I guess.
Yes.
People want to spam you here, but I like this question, and this is, I guess, to Anne here from Justin Turner. He asks, I got to find it past all these. Did OHLQ go into this deal blind, or did they know what they were getting? Like,
Oh, no, we actually tasted these before they
Perfect.
were bottled.
so you know,
Yes.
very calculated.
Yeah.
In a
very
fun-
I'm
hot
guessing-
room in Dublin.
Well, I'm guessing, like, he's asking, you know, did we actually taste these, or just say, like, put some single barrels together and we'll just
yeah.
slap our label on them, that sort of thing. Nope. Very much got to taste them ahead of time, and
Which
they
is
were
a big volume, right, of different distilleries. I
Yeah,
think. So
yeah.
I mean, that
So it
was
was
a lot of
very
legwork.
impressive. Yeah, yeah. I mean, meeting with everybody, and not all of the different offerings are single barrels. So there's, you know, lots of limited blends.
Okay.
Irish gin.
I'm still, I'm still
I
interested. in
am
that
telling
Irish
you,
gin.
the Irish
It's great.
gin
Yeah.
is not to be missed.
All right.
It is. There are some really interesting
That-
ones.
Gin. Is it gin or
Zin gin
Zin gin?
Oh,
Zin-
the
what's
packaging alone
pronunciation of it?
is Zin gin.
Don't be fooled by the packaging. It's like it's super lovely looking packaging,
It's
and you might think,
gorgeous.
oh well, there's nothing to what's inside. That's where they're
It's
putting their
so
effort.
great.
The gin is actually fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like genuinely, it's lovely.
Yep.
Yeah.
They've had the founders in Ohio. They're going around talking to bars and restaurants.
The
and
packaging is.
yeah.
I know that packaging is expensive. Knowing what goes on around the packaging world, I know that
Yeah.
packaging was expensive to put together.
Coming from a
So-
distillery. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
all like, what are your cost of goods on that?
Crazy.
It's
but
amazing.
To then actually put the product, what's the liquid in the bottle, out there too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to them.
Yeah. And a lot of the distilleries really lean into actually where they are and the aging and, being close to the sea air and the terroir. And I mean, there's so much. There's so much diversity in the offerings that are coming out that weekend.
Well, and to kind of touch on or expand on the question a little bit, when OHLQ is doing barrel picks with different distilleries, Steve and I have been on one. We're doing another one soon. Like, is that OHLQ going to these distilleries and wanting to do barrel picks, or is it the distillery going out to different agencies in different states wanting to do barrel picks?
I would say that, and not having been part of the OHLQ barrel program, except for being somebody who was selling them barrels basically a few years ago. From what I've seen and what I've observed, it is mostly a lot of distilleries coming to, much like you would approach Total Wine or, Binny's. And hey, I've got a barrel program and this is it. And there's a whole, sort of pitch.
And because liquor in Ohio is run by the state, they have to go to you.
It's OHLQ, which is it's a partnership. Read the about us on OHLQ.com. It's a very interesting and very unique model. But for the most part, as I guess success brings you more opportunities and people see like, wow, there's a lot going on in Ohio. We should bring our barrels there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Again, Nate always says that you said it tonight, the fourth largest state market for whiskeys.
Right. American whiskey.
American whiskeys.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're number 7 for tequila.
Okay.
Also huge
And there's
category.
a crazy statistic there too, where since it's really the state is the customer, that worldwide Ohio is one of the biggest single customers of liquor in the world.
Oh, I
Like
didn't
there's
know
some
that.
crazy statistic because like the
Ohio
I can believe
liquor.
that.
Yeah.
like since it's one customer, so
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I explain to customers, because I get a lot of customers looking for certain products when they come into Carfagna's, and it's stuff that a bunch of people are always going out there looking for, and like, I don't understand, like, why is this stuff so hard to find? And I explain to them, like, we're the 4th largest American whiskey market in the country, give them the 3 states ahead of it. But then I also explain to them, like, each of those 3 states also have some sort of industry that's helped pushing and driving that, whether it's population or like cruise ships, Disney World, online
E-commerce.
shipping, yeah. It's like Ohio doesn't have any of that. We don't have any e-commerce. We don't have cruise ships. We don't have something like Disney, something of that magnitude. We don't have the population that those other states have.
Right.
We're just a bunch of drunks.
One way to say it.
It's okay. It's a better word.
Aficionados.
don't be so hard on yourself, Nate.
I do think a lot of, and I wonder if this is still happening as much, but the collections basically.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the collections are getting to a point where people are looking at it and it's like, this is more than I could consume in a lifetime. And, is that what you don't think so?
Well, it depends on how adventurous you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we get people that come in like, they almost brag about it. I've got 150,
Right.
I've got 200 bottles. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing here then?
Why are you at the liquor store?
Yeah. And I just sit there and I go, okay, how many of those are open?
Right.
Like, how many of those are you actually drinking? Or you sit there and you're like, hey, I got this bottle and I got 8 of them. That's why there are some products, I think, some of the allocated stuff when it comes to the bourbons, that one of the reasons I think a lot of people that come in pass on them is, and I hear it, they're like, nah, I've already got like 4 of those. Like, cool, you might want to just drink them. Like, because what else? What are you do? What are they doing for you? Just
I don't go
sitting
off
there.
too far down that tangent, but I think that the secondary market has really fueled that. And just to comment on that, and having Anne in the garage here, is we were talking at a get together with some guys that it's almost as though they have gone beyond the, I can use these as currency to get other bottles or just to make money off of it. They're now going to like the even like harder to find things, and then they're just sharing them with each other. And I think that's really where I want to see it go personally, is that I'll take that comment off there. Is that I'd love to see it not just be like you can't find for simplicity, a bottle of Buffalo Trace on the shelf anytime you walk in a liquor store, because people are grabbing those and like, all right, so I can get this for $30 and I can, turn that into like maybe like $20 a bottle. And then I can and it's like, once that slows down, it'll be a little bit better, because we started seeing that in Ohio. I was just out in Arizona. We talked about it on the show a couple weeks ago, and it was nice just to be able to walk into a Total Wine and they have Henry McKenna on the shelf. They have like Buffalo Trace. They were like, yeah, we've got Eagle Rare, we've got this, and it's like they had Eagle Rare for $38.99, and it's like I haven't seen Eagle Rare in Ohio on a shelf and price since before 2020. I mean, it's just been that bad because it's currency for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point, once I think that slows down, you're going to see more of it on the shelf, because people are beyond that, like to that point where I think that some of the big bourbon enthusiasts, they've kind of, in a sense, and I know several of them, like they've kind of like grown up past that. They're like I have enough of this. I'm tired of having to go through all this for that. So they're now going for the harder to find stuff this is something crazy. I mean, I was drinking some bourbons with these guys the other night, and I mean, they're like 18-year-old, like Four Roses. And I'm like, I've never even seen this before. They're like, yeah, you won't. And so it's like they've kind of gone beyond that, which is nice to see.
We should come back to that in part 2.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Let's go ahead.
As a bar owner, is it not refreshing that 10, 15 years ago, it was just flavored vodkas were all the new stuff?
Yeah.
Everything was flavored vodkas.
Think how
We've
far
grown up
we've
beyond that
come.
too.
Yeah.
Now we're actually putting out very good.
That's
there
right.
are very good liquors coming out.
Let's go to the
in-
next
in
bottle
bottle
here,
Let's do that. So
in the effort to stay on
what we're
time here a little bit.
what we're
We
moving
can
on
save
to
some for the second half.
That's true. Which one would you go to next year?
what we're moving on to. I'll kind of introduce the 3 of these in one almost, but we'll move on to the White Muscatel. I think will be a good one. But these 3, they're all the same single malt. They're triple distilled, non-chill filtered, no added coloring again, so all natural coloring, matured for 7 years. But they're mature. Basically, what they are is a snapshot of what that cask does to that single malt. So the first one we're going to do is a White Muscatel finish. So this has been matured for 3 years in ex-bourbon casks before the last 4 years of its maturation in ex-White Muscatel. And yeah, let's actually pour.
Let's do it.
So
Here we go.
a little bit more.
And White Muscatel is a very difficult
Baby stamp.
barrel to source.
Okay.
That's
There
great. Thank
are
you.
not a lot of those available. So there's not a whole lot of whiskeys using White Muscatel as a finishing barrel.
Just on the nose, like right off the bat, it kind of comes across on the nose, kind of like a tawny port or a sherry.
Mhm.
Just this kind of sweeter,
Yeah.
but light, bright
Yeah.
sweetness to it.
So this is a super hard barrel to cut, like rare barrel, highly sought after, hard to come by. White Muscatel it's Spanish fortified wine, basically. For the first 2 years of that final 4 years of the maturation, it gave a lot of what you would expect from a White Muscatel cask. So honeyed, lighter sugar fruits, a little bit of darker sugar fruits in there too. And by the way, the label sort of represents the color of the wine that's in the cask, that was coming out of the cask. So that's why we went with this sort of amber looking label. The final 2 years then of that one started giving toasted marshmallow notes. It started giving cotton candy. We call it candy floss in Ireland, but cotton candy.
You say candy floss?
Candy floss, we call it. Yeah.
You have to floss with it, right?
No.
Okay.
But
Kids might.
but yeah, with cotton candy notes, toasted marshmallow, a little bit of like custard, sort of creme brulee notes too. But
All on the nose.
yeah, all in those.
Like-
And
Floating berries across
Yeah.
pillows of cotton
There it is.
candy.
There it is.
There
Yeah.
it is.
There's the.
Wow.
There we are.
and again,
But isn't it?
cast strength.
Say that
50.
again. I want
And
to.
there's glitter like coming off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Glitter?
Shooting rainbows out your arse, kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
is what this one is. Yeah,
What's the proof you said?
it's 58%
Okay.
alcohol. So
116.
60.
It actually finishes to me like it feels hotter than the 122.
A little bit.
Yeah.
The way it finishes,
Little
it
bit.
just comes across hotter. Like on the palate, it comes across a little richer, a little thicker
Mhm.
than the single grain. But then the finish comes across like more in your face.
Yeah.
It
than
blows
higher.
a lot of spicy glitter.
Spicy glitter.
Spicy glitter.
Isn't that cayenne powder or paprika? What?
I don't know.
Red pepper flakes.
Why is it spicy?
This one's interesting because the nose was definitely all the things you were talking about.
Mhm.
And then you take a sip of it and it kind of finishes. It takes a big turn.
Yeah.
It takes a big turn.
Yeah, this one has been super well received.
I would imagine.
Yeah, and because it's just so surprising. It's like that
Mhm.
reaction that Nate had just a minute ago. It's like, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
No.
Yeah, from fortified wine finished single malt. They're like, well, Jesus, that's what it's doing.
I don't think I've ever seen a muscatel barrel finish.
Yeah,
Mm.
they're super rare. Yeah,
Yeah.
super hard cast to find.
Why is that?
It really just, the seasons that it comes off the vineyard as well, and you really need to fill those casks pretty fast after they come off the vineyard in order for it to be a good finishing barrel. And that took 4 years finishing.
I was reading this just now. Yeah. So you were
Yeah.
3 years in ex-bourbon casks and then additional 4 years.
There's not a lot of that grape used as a fortified wine, that muscat grape.
Wow.
And, from what I've read too about white muscatel, it takes a very long time to produce it too. So white muscatel wine is, I think, a minimum of 2 years, and up to 20 years that they're using to finish that product.
It's got a little bit of that kind of a drier finish than I was
Mhm.
expecting based
Right.
on the nose. I mean, it does have almost like that kind of a drier white wine finish.
Mhm.
You guys,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's almost
just
like
get
summer
cotton out
whiskey.
there.
It's almost summer whiskey kind of.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of that drier finish on there, but
And
it's fresh.
most of that sweetness is really in the nose. It's
It really
it
is.
does- you don't get that on the palate.
That's amazing.
Totally different than the first one that we had.
Yeah,
Mhm.
All three are very different expressions.
yeah,
For
So
sure.
this is single malt, so it's a mash bill of 100% malted barley. So no corn, no anything else other than malted barley can be used in a single malt.
I like that you guys have the flavor wheel still on these.
Yeah,
Right. You
with
guys are
the-
pretty transparent, I feel as though, with this.
with
It's-
this one, with the original release, and I think I'm even going to change this. With the original release, we kind of gave tasting notes,
Mhm.
but I wanted to leave something on there, but rather than tell people exactly what they are tasting, what we think they're tasting, give them more of a. So this one has these flavor wheels on there rather than a tasting note. So the flavor wheel is more. It's somewhere down this avenue that you're getting
It's a
lot
guide.
of. Yeah.
I think it's a guide as opposed to just specifics,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or telling people, like, to your point, like what they should be tasting.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this one, you've got the flavor wheel. I don't know how many are on there, how many different notes or different categories are on there. But it's pretty, it's going all different directions here. Now, granted, on all of them, you're going to get hit like a little bit more highlighted on certain ones. But I'm looking at this one that we're drinking right now, and there's a lot going on there. And I would agree with that just flavor wise. But it's really interesting. You guys did that. I like that, especially with a limited project like this.
I did that.
It's you.
Yeah.
We've got the genius right here.
That's it.
Man, it's impressive.
Did that sitting in my living room home.
Were you drinking it? You were doing it? Yeah. Like the later in the evening wheels were just kind of like, I'm outside the line.
drawn on the
wall. This is really extreme. Give me a different color crayon. I need it. All right, as we sip on that, and before we get to that, as we're getting through this part one here, the cigar. So the cigar, just touch on that here a little bit. Obviously, when we have people like we have this evening in the garage, we do want to focus a lot more on the spirits. But we are smoking the Asylum 13. This is called the Ogre. And this is what they call a barber pole. So the wrapper, you've got two different wrapper leaves on this, which is a little bit unique. You don't see it all that often, but it's not necessarily uncommon. And this is coming from Asylum 13. Tom Lazuka, who's going to be at the Smoking Tent event on March 16th at Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. He will be there. And this is one that isn't going to be the handout cigar as part of the ticket, but this will be a part of the special sales table. So this will be in the Asylum 13 sales pack. And so you get a couple of these in an amazing deal. But they've got, you'll notice that one of the wrappers on here is somewhat, you got a darker brown, which is a little bit pushing Maduro, and that's a Habano seed and grown in Nicaragua. And then you also have it's a Nicaraguan, it's Candela is what they call this. And see the green tint on there, which is where they went with the name Ogre on that, because on the box, they've got a little sticker on there. It's Ogre and it's in green on there. But that's because there's still a little bit of that green from the natural leaf in there. It hasn't been kind of baked out of there, or, it's just more natural on there. They do make cigars that have just the one wrapper leaf that's Candela, the green. And a lot of times you will get what almost you'd expect from just the look of it. It's a little like grassier. It's a little bit more like grassy hay. I mean, don't you think, Nate?
Yeah, with a lot of Candelas.
With this, when you do the barber pole, it'll balance it out a little bit. So you get a little bit more of a less unique, full go on the green wrapper leaf. You'll get a little bit of that kind of, it'll kind of tone it down to more of a every person's cigar.
So what was that? Barber pole?
Barber pole.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
like
you ever
outside
seen-
barber shops, they
Yeah.
have the
Spinning white, red, pole.
Right.
so they call it a barber pole. And typically what they'll do is they'll have the one wrapper leaf, and they'll basically take a strip, which is what you're seeing, and they'll lay that on top of the other wrapper leaf.
Mhm.
And it obviously stands out from a just a different look to it.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys have ever smoked a barber pole or seen it.
Never. No.
No, so it's going to stand out on a shelf, obviously, but it's going to give it just a different flavor profile. But this is, I would say, kind of a straight medium-bodied cigar. I don't know what you guys think, since this is your first time smoking it. Nate, I know you smoked this before.
I have.
You like this cigar?
Not too often. But no, the thing I do like about the barber poles, if the cigar burns evenly, you're not getting dominated by one flavor wrapper over the other. It's more just a little bit in balance. It's like I've done tasting events where they've done like 4 separate wrappers on one cigar, and it's a hard line in between each one. So as you burn, as soon as it hits the next wrapper, it completely changes the profile. By doing this at that angle, like it's staying a consistent flavor profile throughout the whole cigar.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you guys think of it? Not huge cigar smokers, right?
Not
Right.
huge, but I do enjoy it.
Mhm.
Cigar.
Yeah, one of the reasons I picked this one for the show is because it is medium bodied. It's not like overly peppery. It's not like it's I think right down the middle.
Mhm.
And not knowing, besides the original BUA, what we were going to be drinking tonight, I'm like, we need to have something that'll be able to
Fit
kind of
in.
hang a little
fit
bit,
in with
but
friends,
just kind of
yeah.
go with it.
This is the darker wrapper. That's the same wrapper that's on the regular Asylum 13, correct?
As far as I know, it is.
Which is Nicaraguan.
It's Nicaraguan, Habano, Maduro.
Yeah, and then is everything else is it all Nicaraguan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's made by Christian Aroa, correct?
Correct.
Because it almost tastes like some of his other stuff where it's a lot of Honduran tobacco and kind of has like that drier finish to it.
I agree. And when I was looking this up, because I didn't check with them before smoking it, from my understanding is that they've moved most of that production that used to be Asylum. A lot of it was being produced in Nicaragua, and I think now a lot of it's pushed back to Honduras. But as far as the blends, I believe they're the same, but I
Same
can
tobacco.
see them. I can see them tweaking it a little bit with some more Honduran tobacco as they go forward. Be a great question for Tom Lazuka at the 10 event.
I'll probably be inside the shop.
That's
so
cool.
You can
just
ask
text
him.
me.
You
I'll
can-
ask him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And is the width of those separate streaks through it? It's kind of thin. Would that have something to do with how balanced it is between the two, each of the two streaks?
So there's different techniques with this one. If you notice, it's pretty uniform.
Yeah.
Between the different, you know what I mean? Like
The
it's a
later
little
in
bit
the day.
wider. So they will sometimes do a somewhat of a barber pole, but you'll see it be a lot thinner kind of streak around there. And a lot of times that will not have as quite a balance to it.
Oh, that'll be less balanced. It'll be
Pinstripe.
inner street.
Yeah, like almost like a pinstripe. They'll have that along the cigar there, and a lot of times I think that is maybe it'll tweak the flavor profile a little bit. I'm of the opinion that that'll be more for the look. So it's more of a decorative thing when you're doing that pinstripe around there.
Yeah.
There's been some cigars out there over the years that are a little bit more limited because they'll do that, but it does take a different level roller to be able to do that correctly, especially when it's not uniform like that. Because you got to think that when they're doing this, they have the tobacco leaves out on the table and they're using what they call the chavetta, which is like a rounded blade. And they're literally just kind of rolling that and cutting it in the precise way.
These are all hand rolled.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's crazy. It always amazes me how uniform it is. But even like cigar to cigar, they're also super
It's
uniform.
shocking to me when I was still to this day looking at it, being in the industry as long as I have, is that you see not only is like when it doesn't have a barber pole, but when it has some of these intricacies on there that they look very uniform.
Yeah.
And then everything from when they're putting like the bands and such on there. I mean, they literally put the cigar on a very basic, kind of like a wood guide of like where there's a little hash mark of where they're supposed to put the band on there. That's all hand applied as well.
Yeah.
So you literally are just like, you put it on there and you see these people that do it. They dab the little pectin glue on there and they just dab it. And then there you go. Off you go.
It's crazy.
And when you look at it in a box, much like, with labels, I've seen some smaller distilleries where they don't have the big, bottling, like in the labels. And I mean, they're pretty small. So they're at times putting the labels on there as close to perfect because it's hand, the adhesive. They're just putting right on there, stickers more or less.
Even look at these, these are run through a bottling line, but if you look closely, you'll see, like, say, for example, the gap between the back label and the front label. Even a machine can't get it perfect. Like the back label, the front label, and then on the other side, it's a little wider. You might notice it a little bit more on.
You'll see some of those imperfections.
A machine can't even get it that perfect.
Right.
And then people are getting it that, like this one, you'll notice a little bit more. It's a little bit shorter here than it is between the back and the front there. Like machines can't even get it perfect, but yet these are so perfect.
And they're just churning out cigars.
Well, and typically when you open a box of cigars, when you sit there and look across, the rows, whether they're 5 across or 12 across, like those labels will just be right in a line. I mean, you can always put a level on it, and I mean they're just straight across.
Yeah,
it's shocking. I mean, they are all hand rolled. It's just amazing to me still to this day of when you see, like, you can watch videos and such on how this is done if you can't get down to the factories, and it truly is. They're just rolling.
How many minutes per cigar, or how many seconds would it take?
You would know better because you've been down to the factories down there. I've only been to Cuba and Connecticut.
So it's a multi-step process. The first part of it is bunching the binder leaves together, and then getting that in the roll, and then putting the binder leaf around that. Then they set those in a cigar mold, like what's behind your left shoulder. They put the cigars in there, close that mold, and they'll stack them kind of like in a vertical vice grip and just tighten it down.
And these are hand cranked vices. I mean,
and they'll stay in there for typically a few days, and that's the mold is what gives that cigar its shape. Yep, that's what gives the cigar its shape. And then they will undo that vice, and then they will take those molds, and they will then take those to different rollers. So it's not the same people that did the filler and binder. It goes to the people that are actually putting on the final wrapper. So it's a different group of people. And like Steve talked about, they're taking the leaves. And when you think about a tobacco leaf, there's a right half and a left half. And so when they're rolling it, they have to look at which half of the leaf they have, and they have to cut it to the shape depending on the size of the cigar. And then if they have the other leaf, they have to turn it the other way and cut it and still get that kind of conformity. And then they roll that final wrapper leaf on. And just doing that final wrapper leaf, I mean, if you allow production, if there's very little quality control going into a cigar, your average roller just doing that wrapper leaf, they can do 500, 600 cigars a day. But if they sit there and they bunch that too tight, you're not going to get a really good draw out of it. So some companies will actually draw test the cigars before that final wrapper goes on, because they don't want to put a crappy cigar that's not going to draw or be too loose out on the market. So because of that, companies that have a really good quality control system, they're usually putting out about 300 cigars a day per roller.
Okay. So it's really
And
not
then,
something
like,
that people are picking
yeah,
up
and
as a
then-
hobby. Like it's
yeah,
not something.
The company I used to work for, the year before I started, they'd actually fired their entire quality control staff because they had hired people who had been rollers to be over top of quality control. Well, they had their, better friends that were rollers. So whenever they would get cigars from them, like if there were cigars that wouldn't pass, they might still pass them because it reflects negatively on that person's pay if that person's cigars get rejected.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, the company starts getting a bunch of calls about problems with cigars all across the country.
Construction wise, yeah.
Yep. So they fired everybody. They hired like 5 ladies that live like an hour outside of town, and literally the plant manager drives there every single morning, picks them up, brings them to work, drives them home. They are off limits, no contact with the rollers. Like the rollers aren't supposed to interact with them.
It's like an in-house
And-
third party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
And
is
then
how
they
that
would
goes.
and then they would literally weigh every single cigar. They had a giant dry erase board of every cigar, every size,
To the
what it was
milligram.
supposed to weigh to the gram, and they would weigh every single one of those.
Yeah,
Wow.
like I said, it's really not something people are taking up as a hobby, like rolling
Right.
cigars. Just
Yeah.
No, this is a very good job in
Yeah.
the country. Is the
highly
Oh, yeah.
specialized.
I actually
yeah.
did win a Torcedor contest.
We got second place one time. Yeah, congrats.
It was a Tarano one too.
Yeah. Anyways,
So what do they do with the ones that don't pass? They just dismantle
So-
them kind of thing and
Those can be ones that maybe the rollers or stuff will smoke, stuff
Okay.
like that. So I mean, because it's kind of hard once it's been, because once you cut that, once they put that, that pectin on there and kind of, because you have that cap that kind of holds it all together because the wrapper
Right,
leaf
right.
is rolled at an angle. You can't you can't take that off without damaging
To
the
the
rest
kids.
of the wrapper. You can't just sit there and unbunch all that tobacco because it's kind of brittle. It'll break. So like if it doesn't pass, like all right, this is what you guys are smoking. You're
second
second.
rate.
and before you put the wrapper leaf on, a lot of times a lot of the factories will have like the draw tester, right?
Yeah.
So it'll almost like push air through before you put the cap on there. So it'll push
Oh,
air
so
through.
the straw
these.
tester is not a person.
No. These are, handmade. So some people are like, I don't want anything that doesn't have cellophane on that. And you're like, there's been about 100 pairs of hands on this tobacco.
That's just
so you know.
that's just in the factory. That doesn't
That's
even
it.
count the fields.
That's exactly right. So everything's, it's old school, but yeah, it'll be like a draw tester that'll make sure that, there's enough air flow going through there so you don't have the plug cigars. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you guys are liking the cigar, but I want to definitely highlight that before we round out part 1 here.
How are you? So is the pairing going to be that cigar versus any one of these?
That's
Did
what
we
I was thinking.
pick
It's going to
our
be
best
tough.
pairing?
It's going to be tough. You can pick your best pairing
Yep.
so far. And
I think it's going to come more into its own, the pairing with these ones.
all right.
That's if we still have any cigar left.
Don't
Yeah.
worry, that's part it.
I was going to say, let's kind of round out so far
Of
part
the
1 here.
three, which
then-
one pairs the best? with
Yeah,
the
let's do
cigar?
that. We'll do some ratings here. So far we've done what do you call the original BUA?
Yep.
So we call it
BUA original
the OG,
and
and then you've got the single
OHLQ
grain.
exclusive single grain
Mhm.
and the OHLQ exclusive single malt white muscatel finish.
There we go. So with that, it's been a while since you guys have been on, but we do a rating. So this will be a little different because we don't have one featured bottle, but you do a rating. 10 is the best, and you do a rating on the whiskeys, a rating on the cigar, and then a rating on the pairing. So I'm not going to start. Anyone want to start here? Martin, go ahead. Or Pat, you were leaning in.
Well,
Get in there.
I think the best pairing with the cigar is certainly the not certainly, but the single grain, and just because it
I
had
would agree.
just that real deep, good whiskey, good dark whiskey kind of flavor, and
Yeah.
going with that cigar a lot better.
Yeah,
The-
I would agree with that too. That's that the single grain's a little bit more punchy. That darker chocolate, roasty character, I think goes really well with the cigar too.
Yeah.
And for the record, I never really paired a cigar with a whiskey before.
So now we're gonna have to do that every time you guys do a new project. I mean, it's fine. We'll do it.
All right.
Yeah, Steve and I do it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about, since you're not pairing it, of these three that we've had so far, how would you rate them?
So regular BUA is fantastic. And it is, if you're at a bar and you see it, it's an easy order,
Goes with that.
but it's not in the same category as single cask. So I just have to say that it's really great. Totally different price point. Between the two that we've tried so far, I love them both. I really like the single grain, and I like the coffee chocolate, and just being around the smoke. And then I'm getting, we even have off camera smoke. We've got, so you've got the cigar and all of that stuff. It just really fits right in. And I'm a big bourbon fan, so it's perfect.
Absolutely. Nate, how about you? We'll do some ratings.
So I'll do the rating on the cigar. For me, this cigar, I think I actually prefer the regular Asylum 13 over the Ogre. If I smoke a Candela, like I'd rather just smoke a straight Candela,
Okay.
instead of the barber pole. Just because there are some times where I like that kind of grassy flavor to it, and you don't get as much of it when it's a barber pole. I do like the cigar. I give the cigar a 7.
Okay.
Like it's a solid smoke. The whiskeys, anyone who knows me knows how much I love BUA. And if you've ever seen me at Carfanges and someone asks for Irish whiskey, like this is usually the one I'm asking them, like, hey, have you ever tried this? Like this is what I try and push people on, because I don't think people are expecting that level of complexity with an Irish whiskey that's $33.
Mm-hmm.
And I, kind of like with what Pat was talking about, having people come to the bar and order Jameson and then slip them a little, try side by side. It's like it's nothing to sneeze at, the regular product. I even brought my bottle at home because I didn't know you guys were bringing 5. So
Always prepared, Nate. Always prepared.
I remember we ran out 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well,
It's a long show though too.
Yeah, and right above the banner, we still have a little bit. It's kind of folded in, but
Sticker's
the
been through a lot.
OG BUA sticker.
Yeah.
I didn't even see that.
It's kind of gotten folded in from the cold.
Yeah. The expansion, right?
Yes.
The seasons.
So if I had to rank the 3 that we've had so far, I would go OG BUA 3, the Moscatel 2, single grain 1. However, and this is where I'm going to differ from you gentlemen, I actually prefer the pairing with the Moscatel because this cigar, as I talked about earlier, has kind of a dryness to it, and that's kind of offset by that thicker, sweeter creaminess that I get from the Moscatel finish.
Spicy rainbows.
And the Moscatel, like it, even though it's slightly lower proof than the single grain, it packs a little bit more punch on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And like I actually feel that one a little bit more. So like if at the event coming up in March, like between those 2 bottles, like I might actually go with the Moscatel over the single grain, even though I think the single grain is smoother and punches below the price point or the proof point, whereas the Moscatel punches, right at the proof point. Just, the nose on that one for me was much more complex. And so I might gravitate towards that one. See, I don't always go.
I never said you did. There
I know.
There are other people that say you did.
Yes, I've
never.
been accused of being a proof whore in my time.
In those words, yeah. For me, I'm with you on the cigar. We'll start with that. The Asylum 13. This is it's 7.5. I'll give it. This is a good everyday smoke. Nate, I differ with you on these, which is kind of cool because I would rather have more balance on it because I'm not a huge all Candela wrapper or that grassy, that drier. Not my go-to, and it's not as popular for a reason, I think, too, because not everyone's going for that. And so with that being said, I'm kind of with you where leaving just the original BUA out of there, but with the expressions from the OHLQ cask specials that we're doing here, I'm flipped with that. I'm the single grain, and I think it is because the way we described it, it's a little bit more traditional, not necessarily bourbony.
Bourbon lovers,
because
Bourbon
you got some more of those traditional notes that I really like in whiskeys. And I do like this other one, the Moscatel. I like it, but I think it's also with this cigar. I'd like to try that, and on Sunday when it comes up here, I am planning on being there, and I'd love to try that if it's available on one of those testers, just on its own without smoking a cigar, because I don't think you can smoke cigars in Chateau. I don't
No.
think. Yeah,
No.
okay.
No.
Bring one just in case. But I'm just
You can chew on one.
I'll be outside, taking a puff, coming back in. Sir, you can't keep coming back in. Fine. I know some of these guys.
I know somebody.
But like everyone does. But no, that it's almost like it's drying me out. It's drying me out. That's where it's the other one, the single grain was just flowing a lot easier back and forth for me. So that's where I would kind of flip on you there, where it's like, yeah, I'm more on the single grain. So I'm happy. So if we had to pick, you'd buy one and I'd buy the other so far. So all works out well. But yeah. We can kind of pause here at the end of part one, take a quick intermission, and then we'll start part two here. We've got a topic regarding success. This is something that Anne had actually commented a few weeks ago. I don't know if you even remember that. But Nate, he was like, no, we got to hold on.
I've given you like 25 ideas
it's like
for
rapid
topics.
fire sometimes, and we're trying to like do the show, and then there's comments coming through. So with that being said, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. This is part one. We're going to take a quick intermission. We'll stay live here, but if you listen to the audio, just make sure you click over to part two. And I want to thank all of you, Anne from OHLQ, and then Martin and Pat from BUA. And just real quick, if you're listening, March 17th or the whole weekend?
We'll be having a tent party the 16th, 15th, 16th, and 17th.
So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a big party at Byrne's Pub.
It'll be a big one.
Yeah, fantastic. Check them out. So, yeah, guys, cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Irish Whiskey Wednesday.
It's like it.
Bingo.
Thanks for having us, guys. We're
Absolutely.
super chuffed to be here.
End of part one.
Cilantro.
Cilantro.
Wait, what? I think that's right. It's Mexican whiskey.
Oh, running joke.
All right. Does anyone need to take a quick break or?
I should.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Tony is out with Kristen right now. So
Okay.
Just so you're aware.
Apparently he was like, eat me.
I might take a bottle of water now.
Gotcha. Thank you. You want to entertain our guests?
Sure. You like the Ogre? Oh yeah, that's fine.
Pretty light belt when it comes to
Yeah.
cigar.
It is.
Yeah. And so this is a real popular cigar gearing up this time of year. I mean, they make this cigar available year round,
Do they?
but with that green wrapper, like it's one that some companies will do a barber pole candela going into March for St. Patty's Day. So like Alec Bradley, they do one called the Filthy Hooligan, and then they do a triple wrapped one called the Shamrock.
Goes really good with shamrock shakes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, they do those, but they're only available actually I think they just released this week. So they're shipping out to retailers, ahead of St. Patty's Day coming up. So this is one of the few companies though that makes a Candela barber pole available year round.
All the time. Yeah.
What's the price point?
So it's now just like everything else has gone up. I mean, you're looking at MSRPs around 10, 11. So average price
All right.
anymore. Yeah, it's average price anymore.
We had a question from Ray for Pat and Martin. Did you guys go to the World Whiskey Forum, which I think was in Japan?
Pan, I saw that. Quite. No, we did not.
No.
No. We're the small guys.
Yeah. Remember, Ray, their
That's
product,
still-
Ohio.
A lot more whiskey to cover the cost of that flight.
yeah, their product's only available in Ohio.
Yeah.
And what's funny is actually when I started when I started working at Carfagna's. So a little bit of backstory when it comes to liquor in the state of Ohio. When things first come into the state doesn't just ship them out to every agency across the state.
Right. Correct.
Usually starts out, kind of local. So with you guys being in Columbus, it kind of started out, I think, like 10 agencies.
They get 25.
25.
Yeah.
So it's 25 agencies within Columbus. And then just based on how things move from there, whether it expands and goes out to other parts of the state. So when I actually started at Carfagna's, this was actually, BUA was actually restricted to us. We actually couldn't order it.
Yeah.
We would have to get it transferred
From another store.
another agency
Yeah.
that had, a bunch of it on hand, and maybe the days on hand was getting up there. They weren't really moving the product.
Mhm.
They would then transfer it into
Stay.
us. Well, the first time they transferred 6 bottles to us, that was gone in 2 days. So
That is
like,
good to
so it kept getting transferred in, and we keep selling out of it. So then eventually it got opened up to where now we can actually order this
hear. Mhm.
and have it on our
Mhm.
shelves.
Decide to go.
Uh,
Just go
unfortunately,
inside, and
Matt,
then
when
the
he does
doors
order it,
outside is
sometimes
right.
he forgets that it's a 12 count case
Right.
and not a 6-pack.
Yeah.
And so like one time he ordered 2 and he's like, oh crap. Like,
Yeah.
well, looks like this one's going in the back.
Well,
Like,
I think you guys are getting some of the Irish stuff.
Oh yeah.
probably because I took a picture of the lineup and sent it to him. And it was before we started. I sent it to him. He goes, oh, what was your favorite? Because he saw all the bottles. And I was like, no, we haven't even started. Like, I can't answer that.
Mhm.
Yes, Ray, they are in Ireland, but nowhere else in the UK. Just Ohio, Ireland.
right.
That's it.
Right.
Right.
The only bottle that's in the original blue bottles in Ireland.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was gonna ask that.
None
Do
of
you-
these.
So this is the first
Yeah,
ever
right.
world premiere
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, all right.
of BUA single cask releases.
Oh,
And this is our first broadcasting of that out to the masses too.
Oh,
This
nice.
is fantastic.
And these
Very honored.
these have been among the most popular things
That's what we
like,
hear.
in the early returns.
These are these are
Yeah.
in the lead, I guess, as far as what we hear.
Which I
I think
Well,
they have a
can't
good
believe-
sales guy or two
Well-
working the table.
Mhm.
Not to say any specific numbers. The numbers you talked about earlier before we started, were those bottles or case counts that you were for the orders?
of the
Was that-
numbers for the orders of these.
No, the
Yeah,
bottle,
the
the
single
bottle
cask,
produced
single
Oh,
bottle.
the single casks. So that was there was so of these bottles, there's like just over 500 bottles that
Okay.
were part of it. Yeah.
There was somebody that came in and tasted. I can't remember which one it was, but he put in an order for 5 cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
whoa, dude! Slow
I remember who it
down.
was. Can I
We're
say?
gonna have a problem.
I remember who it was. Should I say or can I say?
You could say. I mean, we're not back.
It was John Lane from Winking Lizards
Yeah.
up in
So
Cleveland.
Winking Lizard
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
gonna.
which is great because we tried to get in the door with John Lane with the original BUA for a long time, and
Yeah. Just never.
we've had
Between one
I've had
thing
a
and another.
couple back and forth with him, and then it just stopped. Just-
I think the magic of those events were that you have, for the most part, a lot of small business owners that are coming in. Amy from McClellan's
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah,
She's
she
gonna
texted
have
me yesterday about
Yeah.
this upcoming
Yeah,
weekend.
she bought
yeah,
some.
she's gonna have some great offerings
Mhm.
ahead of
Hoping to have
time.
a
And
special guest too that you had mentioned.
oh yeah. So we didn't even mention that in the
We'll
whole
talk
thing.
about
We
Yeah.
can talk.
And Fido Dublin case, and
Oh, I'm sure he did.
Yes.
Case number Fido
Yeah,
he bought a case of each.
will show up at Easton also.
It's funny. I didn't even good. Like John Lane was there, and like he tasted this, and I was about to move on, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna pick up 5 cases. That was great to meet you." And then he was off. Then I was like, "I haven't even had a chance to
It's like,
taste."
there, nope, good.
That was so
All
quick.
good.
all right.
So which of these 2 are we gonna start with?
Almost have
That one, the one Anne's hand on, looks a little bit lighter in color.
You're right.
Is this the
It's
second fill
it's
and this is the
second
first fill?
Yeah.
It's a first fill wet barrel, basically the darker one, just a first fill tawny port, and then the lighter one is a second fill tawny port, and it's really amazing. The noses are completely different, and the palates just way different.
I'll let you pour whatever you
All right, as you guys do that, I'm going to start here.
Okay.
I'm gonna use a bathroom brush. You might be able to
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, just watch Tony in there.
do it in the middle of the.
I just went outside the garage.
That's the outhouse.
Yeah.
No,
Oh no, yeah,
it
yeah.
happens. Watch him right there. Stay. Stay.
But,
I'm going to get started while he's in there just
Yeah.
so we can keep on track here. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 305, part 2, Beyond the BS, and we are still in the garage here with a lot of different bottles. Nate, why don't you take
To the
this?
left. Yep.
It's the one with the toilet in it. We
Just walk
have
around his house. It'll be fine.
Anne Dimmick from OHLQ. We've got Pat and Martin from BUA here. We are sampling some of these special bottles here. And Anne, you want to give a quick summary for these that are just tuning in on what this is all about with the OHLQ?
Sure. We're here tonight with BUA, and these are some special releases that are coming out as part of OHLQ's first ever Irish Cask and Craft collection, debuting in Ohio the weekend of March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd with some very special events. And then the products will be headed out across the state that following week. So March 4th through 8th, it'll be more widely available. We have lots of special people coming in for the events. Cincinnati will be at Jungle Gyms on Friday, and we'll be at Giant Eagle Strongsville on Saturday. We'll be at Chateau Wine and Spirits in Columbus on Sunday. And I did not mention our special guest host for these events. We have the wonderful Fred Minnick coming up to Ohio
And
to
who's
celebrate.
Fred for those that don't know who he is.
Fred is, in my mind, Fred is the most well-known, largest, I guess, I hate to call him an influencer, but whiskey writer, whiskey rater, whiskey reviewer, the guy with the ascot.
Yes.
And you see him everywhere. And when I used to actually work at distilleries, I have said this so many times, I wish he would hate on one of my brands. Like, because if he says it's the worst whiskey ever, you're going to sell a ton. If he says it's the best whiskey ever, you're going to sell a ton. He just, a lot of people look to him for his reviews. He tends to be pretty blunt in some of them, but which is great.
Yeah,
it's
should be,
great.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's great.
So he's going to be at all three of these.
He will be at all three. You can get
Nice.
your picture taken with Fred. You can meet Fred. We are going to have a lot of founders and owners of different brands that are coming as part of this. Lots of products that are new to Ohio, some are new to the United States. And of course, we will have the first ever release of BUA Irish Whiskey single casks world premiere, which we're tasting
We
here.
are tasting right now.
And I think we're going to have the founders of BUA there as well.
we will be.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they will be. All right. So, yeah, you guys check those out. We do something different on part 2 here. And you might hear my dog in the background. He is very excited. He wants to meet all the guests, as always. But we do something different. We do a topic as we are now changing to the 4th bottle on the table, which is going to be one of the tawny port cask finishes, correct?
Yes.
Have we
I think it's the
already
one that's
started
open
with?
there? Yeah.
Yeah, let's
We
go.
do.
to-
And there's
Okay.
2 of these. So is it finish number 1 or batch 1 or batch 2?
This is the
So
second.
we've started with batch 2.
Okay.
It looks a bit-
The second fill tawny port cask.
So,
And it's a single malt.
yes. So this is again like the single malt, like the white muscatel single malt. This is a snapshot of what that
Yeah, clean
Of
that
what
glass
that
real
will-
quick.
yeah.
Yeah. It's effective.
This is basically a snapshot. I poured a big one. Good Lord.
You poured it.
These are Miguel pours going on over here.
That's
Can't blame me
basically
that
a
time.
it's a snapshot essentially of what that barrel does to that whiskey. So this is a second fill, and the next one that we're going to taste is a first fill Tawny Port barrel. So basically, the first fill is a fresh, wet off the vineyard Tawny Port. Again, a fortified wine. Tawny Port has to be matured for 12 years at least. So, but I'm out of breath here now because I'm just playing with your dog inside.
I'm very excited to see all
He's
of
such a good dog.
I know. Except
Got like
when he wants
20
to-
tennis balls that he'll bring to you. It's very
It's
fun.
everywhere. Yeah.
But,
Around the house.
The second fill is based that the first one that we're tasting here. That's basically a Tawny Port, an ex-Tawny Port barrel that we had used previously, and I didn't want to send it off. I didn't want to throw it away, so we used it again. And so basically, this it went from ex-bourbon for 3 years, and then for the final 4 years, it was in this second fill Tawny Port barrel. Whereas the next one that we will do it's got a lot more color on there, so it's a first fill for the final 3 years. Final 3 years of its maturation. So yeah.
As we're sipping on those, the topic tonight is changing views of success. And this was based off of one of the many Anne Dimmick suggestions, as she is a loyal listener as well when she's available, which is nice. So, but I think the comment was actually, how has the view of success changed over our time, but also for each generation? That was the framework there. And then I kind of added to it. We live in an interesting time in many ways. Yet do views of success repeat through history? You guys are in an industry here that is rather old. Beginning the spirits.
Irish whiskey is the OG whiskey as well.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So I mean, and if you want to kind of where you were coming from with that, if you guys want to chime in, I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can go about this.
I can tell you, I took a class last year, and there was a module in the class. It was like a leadership seminar, but they were talking about generations in the workplace. And it was fascinating. And so right now we actually have 4 generations in the workplace. Am I right? We have boomers, X, millennials, Gen Y, and Gen Z.
Okay.
All at the same time. Gen Z is like just kind of coming in, although they're in their late 20s now. They're getting older as well. They, some of them aren't in the workforce yet.
What's the years again? So I'm a millennial, I think.
How old?
Yeah, you are.
88.
Yeah, you're a millennial.
Yep. I'm kind of tail end of Gen X.
Yeah.
And
I'll be the boomer.
So we're representing a lot of it. It's nice. This is nice.
It's very cool. And I've employed Gen Z and millennials and Gen X. I don't think
I'm still smoking.
Yeah. So it's just really fascinating, the whole thing about the different. So we went through all of the different generations, and they would talk about the things that were kind of like big life-changing moments for each generation, or influences or something. And everybody in the room that was Gen X, this was funny. Not funny. It's not funny, but it is funny. The first thing that was like the big life-changing, thing that you remembered, and the millennials, and I don't know if we had a Gen Z in the room. We had definitely a late millennial, and the boomers that were in the room, like, it was not the biggest deal, but when it said like what was a big influence or a big like life-changing, impactful thing that happened, the first thing that came to mind for Gen X was the same for every Gen X. And the other ones were like, wait, what? I forgot about that.
What was it?
Any guesses? Are you Gen X? No, you're younger.
I was born in 80, so I've seen
You're
different
like
ones.
very
There's like a
cusp.
real,
Yeah.
Like I've even seen some that like 80 to 83 was like, we were kind of like
This in between.
one-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They talked about that too, and they said that trends basically start on, and it's gotten shortened up, but trends usually start on the coast and work their way in. So if you were in rural Indiana was the guy gave the example because that's where he grew up, and you are at the very beginning of millennial, you're probably more like Gen X because the trends didn't quite
Well,
make them.
And I had my brother is 2 years older, so he was 78, I was 80, and I feel like that we kind of like rolled through
Mhm.
before like technology was really
Right.
like impacting children, and then when you're in your teenage, your adolescent
Mm-hmm.
years, and all that stuff. So I kind of rode that. And my parents were they were born in the 40s, so it's kind of
Mhm.
that's really
Yeah.
an odd mixture of time there. I feel like.
Okay, so you're very similar
Yeah.
then, probably.
Okay.
So
So what?
anybody?
You're talking about like a life experience. You're talking
It
about
would
like
be
a
like
world experience.
something that happened in the world.
9/11.
That was, so that was the big impact for the millennials.
Oh.
And it did like cross over Gen X as well. Like I was just coming into the workforce at that time.
I was thinking maybe internet,
Oh.
either internet or cell phone.
The Challenger disaster.
Oh,
Oh.
Because
Wait, which generation is this?
Gen X.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so we were in elementary
when was that
school.
one?
April 12th, 1981 was
Since
the
86.
first. Was it? It was April 12th, 1981 was the first space shuttle.
Okay.
I mean,
When was it?
I know that.
I
I had a
remember
daughter who was born that
being
day.
in.
Okay.
I was in elementary school,
Mhm.
and they used to like when the shuttles would launch, and they had Krista McAuliffe, the teacher's going
Yeah.
to space. There was this big lead up, but when shuttles would launch back in the day, they would roll the TV into the
Yeah,
classroom
it was a
like
big deal.
on the cart,
Mhm.
and you had all of these kids like watching the shuttle launch, and literally like they had us watch this live on television, and it's like
Okay, that
horrific,
makes
and it's
sense.
like, wait, turn this off. We were elementary school students, and we have another Gen X.
96.
No,
86.
no,
86. Yeah,
86.
that's what I thought, yeah.
I'm like, it was
Yeah.
not in the 90s.
Yeah, Sean
Um,
Anderson said January 86.
Mhm.
Yes. So do the Xers in the chat? Does anyone else remember this?
Well, yeah.
Challenger.
Kristen,
Yes.
Challenger, Jonathan, yeah, space shuttle.
Well, because what was the other one that exploded on reentry? Because I was in college watching that one on TV.
Ooh,
It also
It
began.
was Challenger, wasn't it?
No,
No.
that was on
No,
the.
they-
That was
it was on launch.
Yeah, Challenger was the launch, and then there was another one. I thought it began with C, when it was actually on reentry, and I
Mhm.
was in college.
Sadly, I don't recall that.
Mhm.
It was not, there was so much, after the internet, there's so much more going on all
Mhm.
the time that we're all like exposed to and aware of. And it was, in order to get the news as children, you watched the Berlin Wall fall. You watched it
Columbia.
on the nightly news with like Tom Brokaw or Dan Rather. I mean, that was when you got your news. It was just, things were slower, and the things that did make the news were bigger. The other big things about like Gen X was that it was kind of largely the first generation where there were working moms. And so the latchkey kids
Sure.
and they were basically a lot of feral kids, but we grew up pretty fast.
Sure.
And so we were riding our bikes across the
You were
train
outside-
tracks to the
outside of the
store.
house too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you would just be out like all day, and you would go to the local store and buy ice cream and stuff. You were participating in commerce as like a 5-year-old
Yeah.
with the other neighborhood kids.
Buying your
And it
parents
was-
cigarettes, that type of thing.
Yeah, it was really also
I never did, but
I got a note from mom.
yeah.
exactly.
To buy her cigarettes.
It was some pretty fascinating stuff. There were a lot of things because the generation ahead of us was the last ones with, in some cases, like defined benefit pensions. And so they tended to retire earlier. So Gen X actually kind of rose into leadership positions earlier. Some of the things that they said is they don't necessarily make the best managers. They're not really that great at like mentoring and coaching because nobody did it for them.
Right.
And that's not, these are generalizations. They don't apply in every case, but there were a lot of laughs throughout this whole module as we're going through in a group of, I think we had most of the generations represented. So it was pretty fun. But what I notice is that, you know, I think some of the younger generations don't necessarily, and I mean this in a nice
Careful.
way. No, I mean this in a nice way. They don't necessarily judge themselves based on like external praise, motivation, winning awards, all of that kind of stuff. They seem to have a little more balance in terms of what they're looking for out of life. I don't know.
I guess coming back to that, I mean, I'll let you guys comment on this as well, obviously, but it's interesting because like when I think of like these generational terms of success, you know, I look back and again, I grew up in mostly like suburban America. You know, like my folks, they met in the Chicago suburbs, and that's where we lived when I was younger. Moved here when I was still fairly young in the Columbus suburbs. So again, Midwest type thing. Columbus was not quite as big of a city and suburbs as Chicago area, but it's just interesting to hear, like when you're talking about like the boomer generation of like the loyalty to their jobs. They were retiring in a sense, like on time if they stuck with their job, no matter what it was, whether it was an office, you know, type career, white collar, factory job, whatever it is. It was like, I'm employed. I've got a home, you know, whether it be a house or apartment, but a lot of, you know, house. It was like that old school American dream. I feel like is that you want to hopefully have something that kind of carried over. You want like your 2.4 kids, the white point, you know, picket fence. You got the dog that wants to come out in the garage, you know, all that stuff. But it's like you have this. That was your level of success. I feel like a lot of times was a steadiness, a security. You had food on the table. These were things that, you know, you were, if anything, you were kind of keeping up with the Joneses, but it wasn't where we're at now, where the Joneses is the whole world because of what you're talking about, like where you get the news and the social media and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that has transitioned from then my generation, born in 80, like kind of like transitional, then after that. And now I almost feel like it's kind of balancing out a little bit, but there's a period there. I feel like, I think it's balancing out now and being refocused because it is so difficult to buy a home, you know, with the way it is. Now, granted, everything has shifted because people are spending their money on, I mean, like we're streaming on a laptop. We all have our cell phones in front of us. You know what I mean? And like back in the day, it was like, well, I can only call long distance between these hours because it's
After
like, you know,
9.
yeah, it was something like where it's like, well, no, I can't, you know, I can't do that.
And so you might even have
10,
to go over
10,
to the
20,
neighbors to make
10,
the call.
And then we saw the transition where it's like, even with the online presence, I remember where it was like, I was on AOL on the one phone line in the house that then, you know, my parents were like, get off of there. I need to make a phone call, you know? So it's like, we had this kind of transitional period where now it's just like, you're just doing it all at once. But I feel there was a period there where it was like, it was expected, you know, it's like when like the cell phones first came out, like it was a big, like luxury item, you know, only the people that could afford to have, you know, 25 cents a minute, you know, could have that. And then maybe for emergencies, or if you're really well off, you had a bag phone in your car because you rolled like that. You know,
remember when cell phones first came and we were texting and you only get like a certain amount of, like you buy a plan, you get a certain amount of texts per month.
Yep.
And remember how we like abbreviate the shit out of the text?
The
words.
The T9 texting where you had to hit the same button multiple
So,
times
like,
to get to the right letter.
The text down into this like allowed
before
amount
that,
of
it was
words.
like, and I never had one, but like even beepers, you know what I mean? That was the original
Pager.
texting. Yeah, pager. Yeah, absolutely.
My mother-in-law's former car was a 95 Mercedes, and it had a car phone.
Yeah, man.
And there was one time they were driving down the road, and all of a sudden the car phone rang, and they're like, "Well, there's only a handful of people that actually have this number, so this must be something important." Like they called the house, we weren't there, so my father-in-law answered the phone. They're like, "Yeah, is so and so there?" And they're like, "No, there's no one by that name in this car." And the person's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
I can't call car phone. It's like,
Yeah.
excuse me.
There was something interesting there I read as well a while ago that like the question, such a simple question, where are you now, is a question that has only kind of come about recently. Nobody ever had to ask, where are you
Yes.
now? Because you always knew
You were
that
attached
you were
to that
contacting
building.
them. You were
That's why,
contacting
that's why it was called a landline. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
where are you now? It's
That
like
meant-
it's
that meant kitchen or living room.
Yes. And or you would buy the extension cord to where you could be, like around the hallway.
Oh, cordless, man.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, then you had the cordless.
For this big
Oh,
antenna just to go like across the house or upstairs,
Or if you were meeting somebody out, you had to actually be there. You had to coordinate being there
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Because
They
like
weren't
there
there.
was nothing else
Well,
you
you
could.
know, and I certainly lived through all that. And
Payphones.
and it was trying to figure out. I mean, today I tried to figure, how the fuck do we do that?
Because it
How
seemed
did
to
you-
work
how did
out.
you-
Let's
how
have to
did
go
you-
back to that for a day. Yeah.
That's the irony is though you communicated better. I feel like because you had to, right? I mean,
You
you
know,
didn't just,
do you know what I found exciting many years ago? The drive-up payphone, where
wow.
you could actually drive up to the payphone. You didn't have to get out of the car. You could put a quarter in and call from. And I'll tell you,
Those are the night suburbs there.
Wow.
Oh, that.
That's an American thing.
they didn't have those in the
Cool.
ghettos.
No, I feel like
I've
though
ever
that
seen
there's a
that.
transition there where it's like there was not too long ago talking about like success. It was almost expected. You were
Mhm.
expected, at least in the US, you're expected to have a whatever $1,000 cell phone, and it was just like everyone has it.
Mhm.
You know, an iPhone. Think about it, like an iPhone. Like you see people, like you'll see people. They won't have flip phones, but people that are like literally around here, like they'll have some sort of a smartphone, and they are literally begging for change.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you have to have some sort of contact for that. And I know there's like government policies for, you know, like programs for that. But I feel like there was this big, when all this stuff was really pushing forward, and I blame a bit of the Kardashians for this, but it's like you almost are expected to have certain things in life that you rewind 10, 15 years before that. And it was like you had all the things we're talking about. You know what I mean? You weren't allowed to just call people. You weren't allowed to, but now it changed really quickly that it's like these used to be like items of success. Like you were able to financially afford this. You know, you were able to get a car, you were able to buy a house, but then you try to tell the younger generations now that like you think interest rates are bad now. Well, like when my parents, like they had to save 20%, and they were financing a house in double digits.
Yeah, I think my
And it was like
parents.
this
first
was
house
something that
14.
like when you're in your 20s, unless like you did have a nest egg from your parents or you had something really happen very great for you, no, you weren't buying a house in your 20s. You weren't.
Mhm.
And if you had a car, it was a piece of shit. I mean, it was like not like, oh, I'm going to lease a brand new, you know, Honda that's really reliable. I'll have
There's
it for
no
3 years.
leasing.
No, there's no leasing. I mean, like this was just something where it's like, no, if you had a car, it was like, yeah, I have to fill it with oil like once a week because it's like draining on my driveway or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just that was a thing. And
You found it in the classified ads
Yeah.
in the newspaper.
or you had the actual magazine
Yeah.
Oh,
that had
yeah.
all the used car listings in your area.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, that's like high end. I mean, you know.
But I feel like we're getting back to it a little bit where it's like these items, and these are all material possessions, right? But a lot of it is very functional, especially in this country and obviously other places. But I feel as though because it's harder to do some of these things, we are still on the leasing, we're on the renting and all this stuff. And it is a quicksand of a hole because it's like once you start paying, you know, I've got you know, younger friends, even not just younger, but like they're renting apartments, but they're not concerned with the price as much as they are like, does it have like granite countertops? Does it have
Wow.
like high ceilings? You know what I mean? They're like the luxury apartments because they're paying more than I pay for a mortgage for an apartment. And they're leasing a car. They're doing all the things that they think that they should be doing in their 20s because it's not even a success thing. It's like, this is what you're supposed to do.
Wow.
And I think we're getting back to the point where they're realizing that this is not expected. Times can get tough because the dollar doesn't get you as far.
When I moved out and got my first apartment, it was more like, okay, what is relatively cheap, but like has enough nice features? Like there were definitely some places that, you know, when I got my first apartment, I was paying, I think, $615 a month. There were some places that were like $500, but I was looking at the areas. I'm like, yeah, no. And like, yeah, my first apartment was 1 bedroom, open, and there was no granite countertops anywhere. It was
There was no room.
there was no laundry room. It was a stackable washer and dryer at the end of the hallway.
Yeah.
Outside.
You had a washer and dryer. That's high end. I mean, it's like where won't I get mugged and I can have a dog.
I didn't have to worry about a pet. But
Yeah.
it was more like when I got my first apartment, it was like, okay, what do I need? And so like I wasn't gonna go crazy because if it's just myself, I don't need much. Give me a bathroom, a kitchen, a bedroom, and that I can live with that.
Yeah.
The fanciest thing about my apartment was I had a carport.
That's fancy. That's still kind of fancy.
So what are the measurements for success with this then? Like what's changing for you guys? What have you seen change? What's success look like today? Owning an Irish whiskey company? I mean, that's pretty cool.
That's excess.
Excess. No one likes a bragger, but all right, go ahead. Having a job is successful, but having something that you're excited about, it's growth.
Sure. Yeah, there could be
Well-
people that you don't know that have no obligation to you. You don't know, but they are supporting your product. They're
Mhm.
That's okay. I thought
Get
you were
close
pointing at
to-
somebody.
No, get close.
They want to hear you.
Yeah, I guess it's people that what's successful or validating. I mentioned that word earlier, is just people that you don't know, have no obligation to you, and for some reason, some way, somehow, they're supporting what you're doing, and seeing it as something good that they want to spend their hard-earned money on. That's
But I know that I grew up in a different time, but with me, I had no college education, and didn't have a whole lot to rely on, and it was got a job and see how far you can climb in that job, and you stuck with it. You worked your ass off. You worked too many hours, and you just climbed and climbed until you got somewhere. And it was there wasn't a whole lot of options to jump into a different industry or something else. It was you just went in there and kept going until you got somewhere, or you didn't. But
The only reason you switched paths because you got fired.
Right.
Right.
And I remember a job that all I wanted to do was not be in that job. But I only saw that,
That was your
I
job.
saw that I was a retail assistant manager and manager trainee. So I could be a manager if I stuck around with it. And it was like, you had to work crazy, stupid hours, and you weren't allowed to get sick. You weren't allowed to.
You had vacation time, but you couldn't take it.
Right. Exactly.
Not during the month
and
of
you
December.
you did
Been
this until you were the best bathroom cleaner, so you moved up to the next job. And
There's some merit to that, though. I mean, that you're good at what you do, right? No
Right.
matter what it is.
Sure.
Not everyone's going to be a CEO. Not everyone's going to be,
Right.
that person
Mhm.
for
Well-
multiple reasons.
I think like our generation and some of the younger generations, the way they look at success, like career wise, is are they happy doing what they want to do? Like, is this something that brings me joy? Am I fulfilled doing this? Am I successful? Am I making a lot of money? My parents, it was more about, does this provide for my family? That was their only concern. Does this pay the bills? Does this, put food on the table? I mean, my dad working at UPS, he didn't have the greatest fun and greatest time as a package driver for 28 years, all year round, regardless of weather, November through December, can't take time off because that's their busy season. And I remember him coming home and, he'd be upset with the way management was. And they're like, yeah, it's taking you way too long to do this route. Okay, come ride with me tomorrow. and they go ride with them tomorrow. And they're like, okay, yeah, we need to make less stops on your route because they all of a sudden realize like they're looking at it from a spreadsheet standpoint. And they're like, no, you come do this job and tell me how long it takes for you to move, 2 stacks of printer paper into an office using a dolly or having to sling tires into a shop. Like, it's not like the mail carrier who just never gets out of the vehicle and just throws stuff in the mail. So he wasn't the happiest doing the job, but it paid the bills.
Right.
And that's all he cared about, was because he never went to college. He graduated high school, and as soon as he turned 18, he started working as a truck loader at UPS part-time. And that was like starting at like 4 a.m. loading trucks, and then got to be a driver. And, that's where they were like, that's where the money is being a driver. And he never wanted to do management either, but he had to go through all that. And he's, I don't want to do this, but this is what it takes. And I think younger generations were like, oh, if this doesn't make me happy, I'll just go do something else. It's that disposable mindset.
Successful change. Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I saw too. I was a retail manager, and I'm very tightly controlled by corporate. I can't pay my people, but I need my people to stay, and I, it's, how do I make you stay? It's because it's a waste of my time to continually train new people. I need to make your life happy, and that's kind of the best. What I that was my management style was I'm going to make this job as enjoyable as I can possibly do it, so you'll stick around. And when you can go get a job flipping burgers and make $2 more an hour,
especially now.
Yeah, and it was like just had to do that, and it's I don't know. I guess maybe it's stuck with me because now I got people that have been with me for 20 some years and I can't get rid of them.
It's hard to teach.
But it's because I saw management as it was something that I can make your life miserable and just put demands on you and put demands on you and put demands on you, and you'll just leave. Or I can work with you and try to make this as enjoyable a position as possible, and hopefully you'll stick around with me. And corporate didn't always see it that way.
No,
but kind of the way you had to do things is just I felt that it was important that I keep people.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a blend of ideologies there, right? When you were kind of in charge, you wanted to keep people,
right,
but in a positive way, because it was kind of skewed. It sounds like skewed from you were kept there, but almost like kept down to that level.
I learned management. I learned what I didn't want to do.
Right.
That's basically what I did in my training.
I think success, I don't know, like, again, you brought the topic originally, and I think success isn't always the material things. It's easy to go that route, but I also think there's also partly your upbringing, and I think something with the different generations and how it's transpired over the different generations and over time. I'm a firm believer that everything's cyclical, right? Fashion, music, all these things that are around us all the time. It's very cyclical that things come back, and there's a little bit of a hybrid there as it does. But success today is, to me, it is the people around you. It's you have to pay the bills. You have to do that stuff. So sometimes, and people say that, I think we all are doing things at this table that we enjoy, which is very fortunate and somewhat rare still. However, I tell people all the time, it's still a job. You still have your bad days. It's not like, I think there was a still somewhat brief period of time where the people of that age bracket were, if they don't like it, they're just going to leave to go flip burgers. And I was in the moving industry for a long time, and we had that transition where we had people they wouldn't last, because moving furniture is hard as shit. It is one of the hardest jobs. I'm happy I was in that industry because I moved furniture, and then I was a manager, and it was like I always called it that kind of the same mentality where it was a college job that went wrong because I was there for 10 years after graduating college. You know what I mean? And I learned a lot. But I mean, like they had people that were like, I'm gonna go flip burgers. And like, that's gonna make you happy. Like you don't like moving furniture, but you're gonna stand in place and like basically just breathe in the fryer. Like you think this is gonna be worth the $1 or $2 more an hour?
Right.
I had a friend in high school that he quit working McDonald's because they expected him to mop. I'm like, you're in high school working at McDonald's. What the fuck do you expect? Like, and
You think that's the last time you're going to mop?
yeah. Well, and then after he graduated, because my first job was working at the gym that my uncle owned, and I was also captain of the football team. I used to help out people in the weight room. And he came up to me and goes, "Hey, I want you to make up a workout regimen for me because I'm going to start working at UPS, moving boxes." He was going to be a package loader. And I was like, "Why am I going to go through the time to do that when I know you aren't going to last a month doing that job?" He lasted 1 week. Meanwhile, and this was a guy who was 6 feet tall, 220 pounds. Meanwhile, I had a girlfriend in college years later who was 110 pounds, and she was a FedEx package loader. It's like there are two different people there, but they also have two different work ethics.
Yeah.
So what is success for you guys these days?
I'm just like, I'm looking around the table and realizing everybody at this table has had these vast career swings
Oh,
in terms of, I mean, I think we've heard, have you ever talked about yours on the show?
Yeah. No, I don't
no,
know.
no, he
Tell
hasn't.
us what you went to school for,
I used to be a
Pass
PE
that another
teacher.
bottle so I can try that one. You tell me. No, the one we haven't had yet. Yeah. No.
No, back to Phil one.
Fill one.
So yeah, I used to be a physical education teacher, and I spent less time being a physical education teacher than I did studying to be a physical education teacher.
Oh my.
Yeah.
My dad had that degree, actually, is his
Yeah.
first degree. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought doing that degree is like going to get to the end of this 4 years, and then that's going to be success. And then,
Mhm.
sure enough, that I like what Nate's saying, like your idea of success, it changes pretty much. It can change pretty quickly for this generation. Where I was just like, okay, well, I got to do something else, and then went through a few different things, and then so I did a bit of recruitment. Then for a while, worked in bars for a little while, and then went back to college again and thinking, right, this is going to solve the problem. And then it didn't solve the problem.
Wait, what'd you go back to college for?
I did a master's in business then, international business masters. And I came out the end of that.
You're doing international business right now.
Yeah, but I came out the
You
end
own
of
a
that.
company where you're selling internationally.
But see, the thing, I came out the end of that thinking,
Yeah.
as opposed to the start where I was like, this is going to figure it out. I came out the end of that, and like I can't do a single thing now that I wasn't able to do before, and that I wasn't already kind of doing before. Put together that education recruitment business, and that just didn't really. And then then I ended up going working for Tullamore Duke.
Always
Talking
said
the
it.
streets, and
I
that's
said it.
talking the streets, and that's how bumped into
220
you.
into it.
If you stayed in, you got it.
Nate, try
So,
that here.
before you get into this, remember, take a last sip of, or if you haven't taken a last,
I took my last sip.
and kind of remember what this tastes like, because these
Oh.
are both tawny ports.
They're both the same Tawny Port as well.
Same.
But first fill, second fill.
Yeah, same
And-
vineyard,
and-
same
Well,
everything.
vastly different in palate.
When you can't see it, before we pour for Anne, real quick, Martin, if you could hold up the fill 2. So if you hold these, turn the label 90 degrees. So if you look at these side by side,
Whoa.
the color difference
Yeah.
is remarkable.
Yeah.
So first fill here, Martin's holding the second fill. So you can tell that the first fill obviously got a lot more of that tawny port.
You can taste
Yeah.
it too.
And some people,
And that's why I want to do second fill before first fill.
yeah.
Mhm.
So like some people, I've been nearly tasting people on the first fill first, and after we taste the first fill, I'll tell you why. But the second fill allowed it. So the second fill is finished for 4 years. The first fill, they're both 7-year-old, but the second fill is finished for 4 years. The first fill is finished for 3 years, because first fill Tawny Port is actually quite a dangerous cask to work with, because it can become too much of tawny port influence very quickly. You know, Ireland is even a very easy country to mature because the maturation is not as extreme. It's not as big a difference between hot and cold, night and day temperatures, summer, winter. But the second fill for me is a little bit more balanced, but you wouldn't actually, balance is probably the word to use. This is not as balanced. The second fill is more balanced than the first fill.
I agree.
Sometimes people aren't looking for a balanced whiskey, a balanced beer. They might look for a really hoppy, super hoppy beer. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, they might look for a super tawny port bomb of a whiskey. And that's what this is. It's a huge amount of, you can see by the look on the.
And I think that first fill definitely, at least the finish, hits harder.
Yeah.
It's definitely more in your face.
Yeah.
The first fill that we just sipped on.
It's punchy. It's
has
got a little bit of
more
hell, yeah.
punch.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The second fill is a little bit more balanced.
You want to do this?
Or first, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think sometimes just touch on the whiskey side. I think sometimes when you have the consumer looking for these finished bottles, it's a mixture.
Yeah,
you guys would know more better than I do, but I mean, sometimes they are looking for. They see it, they want to taste it, and then one's like, I mean, I get it, but it doesn't really have that port finish. To it. I don't know. I mean, I guess they did it, but I mean, I don't really get much of it.
Yeah, a lot of people will look at a bottle on a shelf, like I was saying earlier, with that color on it, and they'll think, oh, that's the one. That's the one that's got more to it. But it's got,
especially as they know you guys too.
Well,
you're not coloring it.
The same thing.
Exactly,
the same thing goes for ages. Like sometimes, especially I think more so with bourbon, a lot of bourbon consumers in Ohio want the older stuff. They want stuff more than 10 years. Like it's getting to the point now where like 10 years, they don't really, it's like anything less than 10 years, I don't care about.
Yeah.
But then I get people that come up.
I have a 14-year barrel at my house that I keep there. I will not say the name. However, I keep it there as proof that age doesn't make things better.
And
because I can put like 6, 7 year age things next to it, and it tastes like licking a tire. I did not buy it in Ohio.
So I agree, because some of the feedback I get from consumers with products such as Russell's 13, Knob Creek 18, it's like once you kind of get over that 10-year mark, it just tastes like you're drinking toothpicks.
I mean,
like,
I'll take that off there.
But like they sit there like, oh, it's too much oak. It's too much wood. And it's like, but you sat there going into this thinking more age, the better.
Yeah.
At Carfania's last month, we had a flight that our bar did where it was 4 Pappy products, 10, 12, 15, and 20.
Wow.
And 15, anytime I would ask people about it, like 15 was their favorite because like 10 and 15 are the same proof at 107. 12 and 20 were the same proof at 90.4. But when all of a sudden they hit that 20 and they're expecting that to be
more
the best
gratifying
one, it just comes across like just so light and just toothpicks in your mouth, like you're chewing on a 2x4.
Yeah.
Well, I can't talk too specifically about this just because of where this bottle came from, but I did have a 22-year-old Four Roses barrel, and it was oak.
Yeah.
It was oak, and I had like a small pour of it.
Yeah.
Well, it was like something that, again, I can't talk about where it came from or anything like that, but it was just kind of like, this was like, because like when they're blending stuff, they have this stuff sitting there and they take a little bit out of it to blend it, and it was just like pure 22 years.
She's maturation over.
Like, that's cool, but there's a reason. Like, obviously the cost involved to do just that, but it was interesting.
Yeah. But
going back to the success stuff. Part 2.
Yeah.
We talk about bourbon all night.
We could.
We do.
Oh gosh, success stuff. I'm like, why did we pick this stuff?
Well, no,
It seemed like a great idea at the time.
Well, because a few weeks ago, Steve was like, hey, what do you want to talk about? And I mentioned your comment. And it was actually Steve. Steve earlier gave me credit, but it was actually Steve who sat there and goes, no, we have Anne coming on in a few weeks. Let's save this topic for her.
It was like one of 25 things. Because I feel like we can talk about generations and we can talk about, like views of success. They're like their own things.
What's
Yeah.
your career path? Steve had asked that question to the table, and Martin gave his like career lineage. I know you've got a crazy one.
I have a crazy one. I have so I won the science fair
Oh,
okay.
we're going that far back.
We're gonna go this far back. We're gonna go,
That was the start of my career.
when I was 5. Do you guys ever have those getting to know you? Okay. At
Yes.
work, like where they do
Yeah.
getting to know you, and people are like, "This is my cat," and this I'm not gonna do that. But I am
I
gonna
scared
do that.
everybody with my favorite movie back then. But go
Uh,
ahead.
Oh dear. Okay, so I really liked theater, community theater, but my parents said there was no future in that. So I like took a math science program, and then I like won the science fair, which I really liked because there's theater, you get to present. And then I went to college on a scholarship, but it had to be, I wanted to be like maybe a business major or marketing major. That seemed fun. But the scholarship was only for like math, science, or engineering. So I made the business decision because my parents are like, if you don't take this, like you're paying for it. So I made the business decision to get a mechanical engineering degree.
A
And
lot of theater in that.
exactly.
Yeah.
I figured there would be. And so, yeah, was a mechanical engineer in the auto industry. Met another mechanical engineer who's off camera, my driver. Basically, I was the co-op senior year, and I basically got married and worked for I think a couple years, and then it was an MRS degree, so I was going to be a society wife. I figured I'd be a society wife. It would be great. I was bad at that. He will tell you. I don't know.
He's not saying anything.
I'm
He's
not-
just smiling.
I was not a good stay home. I was fine. But so I answered a Craigslist ad to do wine tastings in grocery stores. And then somebody figured out I knew how to use Excel and PowerPoint. And then I was like, staffing and training and all of this stuff. And so the whole career in spirits has been a series of like one fun opportunity after another because somebody left their job. And they're like, hey, you could do this. You want this? That's basically it. But it's really fun. It's really like data driven. It's like a science fair project all day. That's it. But I was going to say, when it comes to picking a job, my theory, I don't know if this is success, but this is what works for me. Because you'd get pitched all these different opportunities all the time. And so I had my little Venn diagram, and there were 3 questions that I would ask. And if you got 2 yeses, the answer was yes. But as soon as, I don't know if you can have 3 yeses, but if you get 2 yeses, it's a yes. But if you only get 1 yes, it's a no. And so the questions that I used to ask were, does this fit within my lifestyle, the confines of my family? Like, does this just work? It just works. Question number 2, is this going to make a ton of money? Question number 3, am I super geeked to do this? I'm so excited. 2 yeses. Okay, so fits in my lifestyle and makes tons of money. Well, that's a yes. Might not be that excited, but that can be a yes. Leading a science fair for free at a local STEM school fits in my lifestyle. I'm super geeked, makes 0 money. That's a yes. It fit in my lifestyle, that sort of thing.
That is interesting.
Yeah,
Super
like-
geeked that's the
Super
thing
geeked.
that rings true with me. Too.
Super geeked.
Yeah.
So
Just nerd out on this thing that I know nothing about now, but I'm going to become a dweeb.
right,
Yeah.
super geeked.
Yeah.
And so, and you also could make an argument for, super geeked, pays well, doesn't fit in my lifestyle, but there's Uber Eats, and you can hire a lot of stuff done, and you can make accommodations in your lifestyle to make things fit in your lifestyle. And I've had different opportunities through the years where they started out as 2 yeses, and then as they went, I'm like, oh, that yes just went away. We're down to 1 yes. Time to
To
go.
make a move.
Your
That's-
lifestyle changes.
Right.
When you're younger, your lifestyle is different than when you're if you're 20, it's different than when you're 40.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that just happens. Whether
Right.
there's family, whether
Totally.
you move, you meet someone, whatever it is, There's things that change.
Empty nesting, totally different world.
Investing,
All of that. So
double income, no kids. That's
Yeah.
a lifestyle.
that's a lifestyle. That's a
It's working out great right now. I'm
pretty
really
great
enjoying it.
lifestyle.
There's a different
Five
acronym.
stars.
5 star.
There's a different acronym for
Would
what you and
recommend.
Kristen are, though.
What's that?
What is it?
So dual income little dog owner.
Oh, that's not a little dog.
He can hear you. He's probably on the other side.
But no,
That's
think
all
about the
right.
letters. Dual income little dog owner.
Aw.
Still, please, I'm good with it. Fine.
I feel like I can spell now.
Martin was the last one to get that.
I'm good.
But I always, when I think of success, it's with me. It's happiness and stress.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Those are the two things here. I'm happy, and I'm not stressed to hell. And
Or you're stressed about
Or-
things that you're good to be stressed about.
right? And really, my stress is self-imposed stuff that in order to make myself happier, I gotta do this. And
Well, being a business owner, I can only imagine. I mean, it's like everyone says, "Oh, it'd be great to own your own business." And you're like, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Somebody
Uh-huh.
comes
Start
up
your
to
own
me and
business,
says,
they
Yeah.
said.
Somebody comes up to me
Yeah.
and says, "Hey, I really, really think about owning a bar. I'd like to pick your brain." I says, "Give me 5 minutes and you'll get over this."
Yeah.
Well, it's funny too. Like even in the cigar industry,
Yep.
people will confuse sometimes, and I always correct them because of like my position with Tinderbox is that like Brian, the owner,
Mhm.
has employed me to be in the face on social media and all this stuff. So people come in and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're the owner, right?" And I'm like, "Oh no." No. And on the flip side of that, people will tell Brian's kind of similar, right? He's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about getting in the cigar business," and he's like, "Yeah, don't,
Yeah, you don't
yeah,
want to.
don't." Like, how much
Yeah.
money do you have? Because you're gonna
Mhm.
need more
Yeah.
just to get
Mhm.
started. There's stresses that are gonna be there no matter what. Like I said, it's always gonna be a job.
Mhm.
You're always gonna have bad days, and a lot of times, your personal life that could be successful, you're gonna have bad days in that too, and then you have to go to work. I mean, there's just so much there.
Yeah.
It's not like that, like the younger, like when you're talking about generational things, where it's like, I felt like we went through the young people were like, "Oh, I should just be able to have all these things. I'm just gonna do what I love, and I'll make a lot of money doing it." And that's where I was getting at with the whole thing. Is that when you're young, it's different. Your lifestyle, your responsibilities are different, right? And as you get older, which I think the big, for me, common theme with that is that the older generation always looks at the younger generation as like, "Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but you don't know how life really is. You don't know
Yeah.
shit about shit, and you'll figure it out."
Mhm.
And then as they get older, then they say to the younger generation, and vice versa, the younger generation is looking at the older generation. It's like, you don't know about anything. You don't know anything. It's like,
I have to,
all right,
I have to
this is
program your
me.
phone. I
He's
have to
laughing.
program your VCR.
As
And
the
I don't have any
mother-
kids, but I look at me as a kid talking to, like, when I had that moment with my dad, and I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I can just do this. And he's like, all right, you can't, but all right, good luck. And it wasn't him like saying like pushing me down, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was more like, so there's a world out there that you're going to be on your own. You'll understand it. Sure as shit, I did. And I feel like that's more of the common theme, where it's generational of what
Mhm.
success is.
Mhm.
But I think that success and the volume of success and the definition of success, it changes
Mhm.
as you become the older generation talking to, or nowadays, and again, it probably hasn't changed because I was the same way, is that you're talking to the older generation. When you're the younger one, you're the older generation, probably being talked to from the younger generation more often, that like, you don't know how it is. This is what's important. And you're like, okay, good luck with that.
Mhm.
Good luck on your TikToks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was the thing we just went through. Like, good luck on that. Like, oh, you're gonna be an entrepreneur. Cool. How much startup do you have? What do you mean?
Mm.
You're not
Well,
gonna
like-
help me? Like, I mean, these things are like the big thing.
Well, and there's that, that crossover, like, Steve, you and I, with at least where we are, like, we had that time period where we didn't have, say Google Maps or MapQuest, any of that stuff. If you wanted to know how to get somewhere, you had to have an atlas in your car for a road trip to figure out how to get where you were going. Right. Oh no. My dad had the one that had every single state atlas. address
Yeah.
type thing. And that's how you would have to figure out where to go. But then, you know, when internet comes along, it's like, okay, now we get to show our parents like how this stuff works. And then the new generation, they just completely rely just off of the technology. And you're like, all right, without using your phone, tell me how to get to here. And they're like, I have
even more to it is, which is great, is 'cause I remember I went to an aunt's funeral in somewhere and punched it in. It was all back roads. I had no fucking idea where the hell I was.
Yeah.
I got there. I got there.
You couldn't find that on your own.
I have no idea where I am.
When you see the little convenience store, you know, the 400 square foot convenience store, right after that, that's when you make your left. And you're like, wait, what? That's
And it was amazing because, you know, I grew up living off of, you know, the Atlas in my car.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, this is how you got there. And it was, and you knew where you were going. You know, you saw all that, you studied it kind of thing. And then when the first times I punched it in and went somewhere, it was like, where the hell
There's
am
some
I?
benefits there, right? Yeah, there's some pros and positives.
Right. But it's wholly different, but you know, I don't know. I think, you know, the older I get, it's success is happiness.
Nice.
And as a younger man, when I started out the bar, it was, I had the energy to work hard, to work really hard, and did it. And people say to me now, why don't you open up a Byrne's pub over here? I can't work that hard. I cannot work that hard again.
Yeah.
I have no desire to. You do it.
You would have to train a completely new staff to be able to run things the way you run things at yours.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
And you're like, no.
no desire. You know, that's not worth the extra few dollars.
But isn't
if there are an extra few dollars?
It's interesting that like as soon as you make something successful, it's like, oh, so are you going to have this many new locations? Are you like that's that's the assumed next step, and it's no, that's not actually the goal.
Yeah. Well,
Same with being a brand.
we get asked that sometimes at
Mhm.
at Carfagna's. You know, Carfagna's has only been at its current location for just over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
They'd been off, you know, that little tiny market off of 161 for decades. You know, now this, you know, great big, huge market, restaurant, liquor, wine shop, and everyone's like, man, you know, we drive all the way here from Grove City. You guys need to open up one of these down there. It's like, you do realize the family's only been doing this that you see for 2 years. Like, there's like what Pat's talking about. Like, wait, you like all the Carfagnas are up here. Like, so that means some of them are going to have to go down there to run that. It's like,
Well, it's
like,
the
how
comment
big do you
earlier
think this
about, you know,
place
the
is?
question about like, when are you guys going to have a 12-year BUA? And you're like, 5-6 years. I mean, like that's actually like
you're
tangible.
4
This is
years
like,
in.
That's what it means to
This
get
is
it.
like you just
Yeah.
said 12 years. So we've been in business
Was that
for yeah.
It was a lot of stress delivering these sometimes, man. It was a lot of stress.
Did I add stress to your life?
Don't even know how
The-
many the worried nights.
Remember, your cases are due at the warehouse.
The thing I
Where
the thing I love most about what Ann said was, you know, the 3 criteria,
Mhm.
2 yeses. But the thing I like the most about that is that doesn't stop when you get the job.
Mhm.
It continues.
Yeah.
If one of those yeses becomes a no, you recognize that as nope, I need to make a change.
Time to go.
I think
the
they're
last one was the best one. That one really rang true. It was like, are you gonna nerd out on this thing?
MS.
That can
It's
almost
kind of my
fix-
first one.
That can
actually.
figure out if you're that one, you can make the other ones. Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people that when they get the first opportunity that meets 2 yeses, or maybe even they're lucky enough to get 3.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden those yeses become no's because it was an opportunity they were excited about,
Mhm.
they're like, nah, I feel like I have to stay here. Like they pigeonhole themselves into that
Mhm.
instead of realizing, no, this isn't what I set out to do. Like something's changed, whether it be the job has changed, I've changed. Something
I
has
learned to
changed.
ask better questions.
Something has
Yeah.
changed, and that means I need to adapt to that change. I need to make a change in order to deal with that, because I think one of the worst things that can happen is when you make a decision, like to take Anne's example, when you take an opportunity based on 2 yeses, what happens when all of those become no's? Do you still sit there and like
No,
keep plugging away?
No, because you'll die. Like if you're not geeked about something and it's not fitting in with your lifestyle, meaning like you're not being a good spouse, mother, like I'm just speaking for myself. You're
Mhm.
not a daughter, sister, all of that kind of stuff. Like you're not friend. You're not meeting any of those obligations. And also you're making like no money, basically. Like you can't stay in that. That's like a bye-bye.
I think to comment on that, as we're kind of like getting to that point of kind of,
Mm-hmm,
I think we're circling around what we think is success.
mm-hmm.
You can look at that with relationships. Take the money out of it
Mhm.
to a point, right?
Right.
But just those other 2 that you had said, does it fit my lifestyle?
Mhm.
And am I super geeked out about it? Those are 2 things in just anything in life that I think that
Sure.
if you're having a successful, whatever the arena is, right?
Yeah.
Relationship, or as you said, like a mother, like what, like you want to make sure that the happiness, and you had mentioned happiness,
Mhm.
which again is a whole nother conversation of what was the definition of happiness for people.
Mhm.
But it's like you want to make sure that you're geeked out about it. And if you're not, figure out why you're not. Does it fit your lifestyle? What is the lifestyle that you are wanting? And I think, sometimes we look at those, like I was saying earlier, like the younger generation, it's not a Venn diagram.
Mhm.
It's what is your ranking? Does this fit my lifestyle when you're 21 years old? No. Your lifestyle's no. You want to travel. Great. How are you going to do it? Do you have money to do it? No. So, okay. So now you got to fit, like, what's your actual lifestyle look like? What are you geeked out about? The money, you say you make a lot of money doing it, or can you make a lot of money? I think that's important. Take it just back a notch. Can you have the lifestyle that you want?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like define some of those things a little bit closer of like, and then get what Pat was saying was the happiness aspect of it. My lifestyle that I want to have, a huge house and be able to go wherever I want, whenever I want, and all that stuff. It's like, all right, that'd be great. There's a very small percentage of people that can just do whatever they have. Fuck you money. So like I said, like define that a little bit. You know what I mean? I think that you can do certain things, but I just wanted to comment on that. Success is not always the career.
Mhm.
Success is happy relationships, friendships. You know what I mean? Like we all know each other because of, judgments allowed, because of whiskey. A lot of people be like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's like, we're also a little geeked out about it. So there's 2 things here. We hit 2 out of the 3. Are we making money off of it? Maybe.
making some, losing
Can we make a
some.
lot of money off of it? Maybe. Define a lot. But you got 2 out of the 3. We're getting there. If we can get 3 out of the 3,
Yeah.
fantastic.
The fit with the lifestyle.
But I
The
think
doctor
that
wouldn't say it would.
relationships are fit that Venn diagram as well. Because I mean, I've had a lot of friendships, I've had relationships where it's like at some point it's like, yeah, it's clicking. But then all of a sudden, lifestyle is not what I thought it was going to be. You know, the geeking out about what we're doing in life together as friends or whatever, like the friendships fall off. Sometimes relationships fade. And I think that sometimes it's because you're not looking at, and communicating with the other party of like, are we geeked out about this still? Why not? What can we do? And you keep working at it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of work in success. And I think sometimes talking about the generational things, when we look at this original topic of like, what is the difference, is that with life experience, I know I can speak for myself. And I think that, again, all of you guys at the table probably can do the same, is that success, the definition of what you think success is different than what you think success was.
Right.
And I think that's something that if you are being ear to the ground. You're communicating with people around you, whether it be in the business arena, whether it be your personal life, whether it be just even friendships, or even just looking at yourself in the mirror. You got to redefine that Venn diagram. What is the lifestyle that I want?
Yeah.
But success changes each age, each year of your life.
Yeah.
Success changes. I remember when my success was I wanted $5 a day for me. I wanted to buy a pack of cigarettes and a 6-pack. That's when that was success.
It's a good weekend.
Wow.
A good weekend. Or Wednesday night. I don't know.
And and then and I talk to people that said when I talk people out of buying bars, it's like go to school and get a job that makes you a lot of money, and you can just hang out at a bar as much as you want.
Yeah, you can sit on that side where you're at right now.
And you don't have when somebody pukes in the bathroom, it's not you that has to fix it. So it's not a business that's open 18 hours a day, and you have to deal with it. So it's you got to pick what you want. You want to be a bar owner. Why?
Yes. Find your why.
And
Or a little bit more of this.
Don't be a bar owner because you want to be your own best customer. That's a really quick path to really sad outcomes. And I think all of us in the industry have seen that.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I caution everybody.
You know why I wanted to be a bar owner? Because I was in retail, and I just wanted to go from, yes, ma'am, I really am a dick, to fuck off.
You're burned.
Now everyone's going to want to be a bar owner.
Right. Well,
I feel like you kind of switched past it. Never do it.
Wait,
fuck off. I love that.
What Steve said
Wait, what are
earlier.
you saying, Bob?
What Steve said earlier. That's what we hear a lot about in the cigar industry. You have guys that come in. They love smoking cigars. They love hanging out in the lounge. Like, this would be perfect if I could do this as my full-time job. And it's like, you're trying to make your hobby work.
Right.
Like,
Right.
And go the other way around.
Yeah.
Make your work your hobby.
And I think, like, Martin, you probably get this too. What people think our job is, because especially we were sales reps alongside each other, like back in the day, and they would see us do like some sort of a dinner or do a happy hour or do a staff training, be like, I could do that. They did not see the Excel spreadsheets and the reports and all of the stuff.
Yeah.
Like, no, you just saw like the cream. You saw the fun part
saw
of
the
the
fun
job.
product.
Bar and buying people drinks.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just like, again,
Yeah.
parallel
It's a
cigar
real
industry,
job.
cigar reps. It's like customers look at bar owners,
Yeah.
rock stars. You guys are
Oh.
rock stars.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are like,
Yep.
oh, this.
You
I'd
come
love
out
to
and
do that.
smoke cigars for a living.
Yeah.
I want to do that. I'd be good at that.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
you talk about like the hotels, you talk about the
Yeah.
life away from the family, you talk about like even like, the work side of it. And they're like,
Mhm.
I thought you guys just do this.
I have a coworker currently that he had left the company to become a sales rep for a liquor company. One of the big conglomerates. He had left it to do that. In his first week on the job, he's like, wait, so I got to do like tastings at night and at bars, at stores, at restaurants? Nope, not doing that.
Yeah.
So after less than a week, he's like, nope, I quit. I'm going back to my old job. It's like, oh, you didn't realize what all went into this,
Yeah.
did you?
You went found out, didn't you?
And,
Yeah.
And in the bar industry, it's you frequently people think you don't do anything.
Yeah.
You get somebody else to tend the bar. You don't have to do anything. It's like, well, it's it's still a $1 million
Yeah.
plus in business. Who runs $1 million plus business and doesn't have any headaches and doesn't do a lot of crazy work? It's
People that were independently wealthy before they got into the
Well,
business. That's the answer to that.
Or also the number of people that want to start their own distillery, start their own whiskey brand. And I'm like, let me introduce you to TTB submissions and,
Oh, yeah.
all of that. There's so much on the back end that people don't see.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What are your shippers looking like and where are you getting them from? And where's your glass? And what quantity are you ordering them in?
Exactly.
And what is your label and what quantity are you ordering them, and is your bottle going to be like dedicated packaging? We're talking about cost of goods, and and then what's your shelf price?
Yeah.
There's so much more to it than coming on a podcast and talking about whiskey.
Don't talk
And you gotta
bad
get-
about that part.
No, we love it. I'm saying that's the fun part
Right,
that
absolutely.
everybody sees,
Yeah.
but there's so much behind
And
it.
as well,
It's
to
rock
do all
stars.
that stuff, you've got to get a lot of people's help to do it. You got to pay people to help you to do that too.
Mhm.
But the people that you're getting to help you to do this stuff that you are super geeked out and you are really excited about doing, they don't really give a shit about it. They don't care about what you care about as much as you care about it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the stress comes in as well, as you are really stressed out about moving this down the line when other people are just not. They're not that stressed
I
out.
combine
about
that
it.
with that mentality of like, well, if it
Yeah.
doesn't work out, then I'll just move on to someone else.
Yeah, they'll do the next job.
Yeah, you don't have that capability.
No,
do you?
it's like we need this job to get done. Yeah. So yeah.
You guys round it out. What else do we want to talk about? Anything else?
I think we're
Closing remarks.
closing remarks.
Let's get after it.
We got there
Yeah.
already. That was
Where are we starting?
So,
wow. That's like 3.5 hours already.
I know.
it's almost 3.
Almost.
We're good like that.
I can't remember the last time I drank. for
What time?
3 hours.
That's because you were drinking.
Aye.
All right, closing remarks on success. And I want to thank you guys for being here.
Mhm.
You guys are BUA. You guys are taking chances still, which this is to the point we're making. It's like, oh, it's great. You have all these bottles. You guys did all these projects. You hear the passion behind it. You're like, oh, it's amazing. You guys are taking chances. So thank you for that. And thank you for your time.
Mhm.
And thank you very much for coming back on after all the transitions. Now you're with OHLQ. Absolutely. And just a reminder, it's been scrolling on the bottom if you listen or you're watching on the video. But March 1st through the 3rd,
Mhm.
you got first is in Cincy,
Cincy.
Yes.
second is in Cleveland,
Yep.
and the third on a Sunday. Thankfully on a Sunday, so I can go.
Me too.
is
We
in
did it for
Columbus.
that.
Absolutely,
Right there.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that. But yeah, check these guys out. BUA, just obviously the BUA Blue bottle, and then obviously all these special ones that's going on with the OHLQ, along with all the other Irish whiskey cask selection. Is that what we call it?
Irish Cask and Craft.
Craft collection.
Yeah.
Almost had it. Closing remarks.
Awesome. Go ahead.
What
Well,
is with this?
Yeah,
We already hit all the main points.
One, I've got my own happiness sitting right here. It's so much beauty right here that
Some of the bottles or the people.
exactly. But
Well said.
But,
That was good.
but this has been an astounding couple of weeks here, and I have to thank Martin for getting these things out. These are really really beautiful products, and I know not everybody enjoys them like I do, or will enjoy them like I do, but I hope that you have a chance to at least try them, and win or lose with the brand, I'm so incredibly happy that to be a part of this and just have this going here. So it's win or lose, I've got happiness. We've got success.
What does BUA mean?
BUA is the Irish word for win or
There you go.
victory.
I'm just saying it's like already it's out there, right? You know?
Right there.
Martin, how about you?
That is pretty good. Sorry, you took all my lines.
You got to come up with something original
I gotta come
now.
up with
I was
so-
looking at your notes.
Martin's like pass.
Oh yeah, success. I mean, geez, I would also like to. I mean, Pat thanked me. Pat has nothing to thank me for. That is the last thing that Pat needs to be doing. I owe Pat everything for jumping in with me to do this. And somehow we're still here 4 years later after Jesus. Like we launched
This is just
this.
post-launch.
We launched this, and then we launched this, and we started this Irish whiskey company, and then a hell of a obstacle came our way, and we're still here, and we're still here in no short way because of the the support of Ohio, and in no small part of that is OHLQ. And now OHLQ have Anne Dimmick and OHLQ have just jumped in behind us. And
I'm just one person.
but
There's a big team. That's
but I
exciting.
mean, you're no small part of that team either, though, and that's, I mean, we're somehow still here. But I guess to define the success, there's no. I guess my idea of success is I haven't really figured it out yet, and I can, because it is always changing with our generation. But if I can, I don't know. Again, but he stole my line, so I can't really say it.
Okay,
I can't really
okay.
say it again.
You got some great statements right there. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess every month, every year that we're still trucking, have to be incredibly gratified by it, you know. So thanks to everybody who's supporting us, OHLQ and everybody there, and yeah, I don't know how else to finish that really.
Just
I was going to say
Cilantro.
BUA and Sláinte, but there we go.
Cilantro.
yeah,
So
well,
We won't say that. It's going to be the inside line. Okay, so I can't go after that.
you got to now.
Yes.
What, do you want me to go before you?
I will just say, like, success is the couple of weeks we've just had where, you know, okay, yeah, we're selling liquor and we're bringing new Irish whiskey to Ohio and gin. The gin's really good.
Looking forward to it.
But it's spending a few weeks like in market with people that had an idea and turned it into a brand, a distillery, and then also spending those weeks with Ohio small business owners, bars and restaurants, somebody who had a dream, somebody who had an idea, and they're coming together. It's so inspiring. And we talked about geeked out things. That's something that geeks you out. And I know in a few weeks when we bring this out to the public and we have all of these great people in one place, people will lose their minds. And that geeks me out. And, you know, just that's it. That's success. Like doing new things that we're all excited about. We're all winning. We're all having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And find us on OHLQ.com.
No.
No, okay.
Nice plug.
Yeah.
There we go.
I think for success, I think the biggest thing is you have to define success for you. You can't base it off of those around you because, you know, they may have different aspirations. They may have different goals. You have to figure out what your why is. And you have to do the things that matter to you and the things that are important to you. You know, if it's important to be happy at a job, go find something that's happy, that makes you happy. If it's making a lot of money, then go find things that make you a lot of money. But you have to realize that there's going to be a trade-off with either one of those. Is it something, you know, are you going to do something that makes you a lot of money and be miserable? Or are you going to do something that doesn't necessarily pay a lot, but makes you happy? And, you know, does doing what makes you happy at least pay the bills? I think for a lot of people, that should be the question they have to ask themselves. That should be the trade-off, is not about pleasing other people, but about pleasing yourself.
Yeah, I think the saying of what is it? If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Pat, would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Well, I think you would until you have a bad day.
Clean
So,
overall.
in the back.
Yeah, you gotta
Overall, yeah.
gotta clean somebody's puke out of the urinal.
Yeah. If that makes you happy,
You do
please
you,
come
man.
puke in his mouth.
Go ahead, you enjoy it.
I thought you were going to go a different direction, but
I-
that's fine.
well,
I set you up, and I
Yeah, I know. It's
didn't put it on the right seat.
It's like, yeah.
But I think so. Listening to the closing remarks, I'll just add this little bit. Was the short-term successes, right? So you have, I talked about, and we've all talked about it, where it's like your definition of success will change as you get older, and you have, I love the Venn diagram thing where those definitions will change. What makes you happy? What do you geek out about? What do you like? What could make you? Anything could make you a lot of money if you do it a certain way. And to Nate's point, I know a lot of, I'm putting quotes up for the people on the audio, air quotes, that are successful, that they have had broken relationships. They're alone. They're miserable with a lot of money.
Mhm.
It is those different aspects of it that all come together. But I think a lot of times it's like when you guys are talking about what you three are doing collectively with this project, this is like a long time coming, but right now it's a short period of time. And it's the short-term successes that you want to celebrate the wins, the BUA, right? You want to celebrate the wins, but as soon as you have that win, you reflect on it, you enjoy it, you celebrate, you got to keep going. And I think that's where it is. Sometimes people just live for those short-term highs and they just think that that was it. Now they can just kind of rest on the laurels of what they've done. And that's not always the case. And I think that's the true long-term success is listen to what makes you happy, what you want to do, what do you geek out about, what all the things we talked about tonight is that the long-term success is going to change as you're going through it. And you guys are, two of you, Pat and Martin, especially with the BUA project, this will look a lot different 5 years from now. Knock on wood, someone. If we got wood behind, yeah, someone. That's not wood. Yeah, there you go. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
Not another.
the coaster.
It's not a 2025
stained wood.
pandemic. You know that. So like you guys will keep adapting, you keep growing, and all that stuff. And I think that's a big part of it is growing as an individual and the people around you, business wise, personally, everything. And again, looking yourself in the mirror and being able to really dive into what's going to make you happy that leads to success. So.
All right, so we're going to take a few minutes off here, and then we're going to come into part 3, where
All
we're
right,
going to do the second
you
cigar.
again.
We're going to finish off these bottles.
Thank you for
Stay
having
tuned.
us. This was
Absolutely.
an amazing evening with friends.
Absolutely. Thank you. guys.
Cilantro.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Irish Whiskey
Cilantro.
Wednesday. There's
Cilantro.
cilantro. Now I got to turn this back on. They're going to watch us
Cheers.
awkwardly say cilantro.